I'm going to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Blue Lake City Council to order. It's Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. Our first order of business. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you establish a quorum of the council, Mandy? Okay, thank you. Annalee, here. Potential.
Present.
Councilmember McKay.
Present.
Councilmember Edgar.
Here.
Councilmember Scafani.
Here.
Okay, we're all present and accounted for. We are on item 2, approval of our agenda. I know that the Eisners will not be here, so item 7 will have to be postponed until our next meeting.
I would like to move number 5 up above number 4, please.
Okay, we could do that.
Thank you.
So no more number 7, move 5 to 4.
Yeah, no number 7 and 5 moved above 4. Is there any other changes from council? Anyone in the audience that would like any changes on the agenda here for a particular item?
Number 9, promise.
9 moved. Okay, let's see.
I think the other ones are going to be very short. You'll be on number 9 pretty quickly.
So 9 would be quick, you think?
No, you're going to get to 9 really quickly.
Oh, we'll get there
Yeah,
we don't
because you don't have
because we don't have
7.
7.
Yeah,
We
6
have
is very
commissioner. We have the proclamation.
quick. 8's very quick.
We
Yeah.
have the Blue Lake Power lease. That'll be quick.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I think we'll just leave that. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, we need a motion to accept the agenda with those changes noted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Angela Shull to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion from council? Discussion from public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We have an agenda. Okay, next item of business is our resolution number 12222. It's a lot of twos. A resolution of the city of Blue Lake honoring the contributions of community advocate and Blue Lake Planning Commissioner Earl Eddy. And we do have members of the family here. This resolution is written in honor of Earl Eddy to recognize his many contributions to the city of Blue Lake and our community organizations. At the time of his passing, Earl was serving as the chairman of the Blue Lake Planning Commission and was an active and engaged community volunteer and advocate. So usually what I like to do is pass the resolution and then I'll read it. That's okay with the council.
I moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion? We can have discussion about it as well, and we can open it up for public discussion as well. But you can make a motion and a
Okay.
second, and then we can.
I'm going to move that we adopt resolution number 1222.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Christopher Edgar to adopt resolution number 12222. Any further discussion from council? Any from audience? Yes, I am, as soon as we pass it. Yeah. All right, back to council.
Well, there was a
Yeah.
hand.
Oh,
We had
I'm
a
sorry.
hand.
Yes. Scott?
Yes, I favor that resolution. And as someone who knew Earl, he was a fine member of our community, and there's probably not enough I could say in 3 minutes to give you more than you already know, but it's a good deal.
Thank you. All right, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. Resolution number 1222.
Oh, we
didn't
just
see a hand.
just had that. Did you miss it?
No.
Oh. Do you want to comment?
You want to comment now or after? Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Lynette. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Yeah, it's
I
okay.
just wanted to thank you all for honoring Earl. I know he loved this community, and I just really appreciate you guys doing this. So it's been 6 months already. So thank you.
Thanks, Lynette.
I just wanted to say that as a member of CERT, I coordinated the community outreach works that we did, and Earl and Lynette were always volunteering. They were out there at the tables educating people how to be prepared. Um, he is energetic, enthusiastic, and really funny. Just a wonderful person. And I also want to say, as the chair of the Planning Commission, he was outstanding. And I was at the last meeting that he conducted, and I was, and I've seen a lot of meetings conducted, City Council and Planning Commission and more. And he was tireless, and he was very ill at that time. The meeting went on for a long time. It was very contentious. He was respectful. He listened to everybody. He empathized where he could. He explained his limitations, the limitations of the Planning Commission, where he needed to, so people could understand, what was going on. He just did. I remember that night just being so amazed at how the job he did, and what a loss for the city, and what a loss for our community, our team. So this is very appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any other comment? I'll read the resolution. A resolution of the City of Blue Lake recognizing the contributions of community advocate and planning commissioner Earl Eddy. Whereas Earl Eddy was a resident of Blue Lake, and whereas Earl Eddy was an active community member dedicated to the betterment of Blue Lake, and whereas Earl Eddy was a member of the City of Blue Lake Planning Commission, serving on the commission for over 8 years, and at the time of his passing was serving as the commission chairman. And whereas Earl Eddy was an active and dedicated member of the Blue Lake Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, spending countless hours training and preparing to serve his community in the event of a disaster. And whereas Earl Eddy was an active member and volunteer for many of the Blue Lake community organizations, including the Old Crows and the Mad River Grange. And whereas Earl Eddy will be greatly missed by the residents of Blue Lake and the community that he served, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Blue Lake hereby adopts this resolution in honor of Earl Eddy, his contributions to the City of Blue Lake, and his community spirit. Passed this 28th day of November 2023. Here. Did you want a picture with all of us with the resolution? Okay.
I think so. It
Really,
doesn't
you're
show
right.
up in like pictures very well. If you guys are gonna take.
Oh, different ways. Do you guys want to get in there? Lynette? What's happening?
Are we all? Oh, good.
So you guys want to get in there? Thank you, Lynette.
Yes. That's too funny.
History. All right. Our next item of business is moved from item 5 up under item 3. Proclamation honoring Joan Shirley and declaring February 4th as Joan Shirley Day. Discussion and action. The family of Joan Shirley has provided the attached proclamation honoring Joan Shirley's contribution to Blue Lake, Del Arte, and the greater theater community. The family is requesting that the council adopt the attached proclamation and dedicate February 4th as Joan Shirley Day. And our proclamation is attached.
Look that up.
Okay, would you like to add to that, Elizabeth, or this?
No, I don't think I need to add to it, but I could move that we adopt Joan
Okay.
Shirley Day.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, I do. So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Angela Shaw to adopt the Joan Shirley Day proclamation honoring her contributions to the community and designating February 4th as Joan Shirley Day. Any further discussion from council? Out to public or any discussion or addition or comments?
Good.
Yes,
Please.
this is the time.
Hi, thank you so much for considering this resolution. My name is Christina Nielsen. I'm with Joan Shirley's niece. And I'm not from Blue Lake, but I came up here and visited her many times. And I just know that what a wonderful, amazing, and close knit community this is. And that she just poured her heart and soul into bonding with her community, her beloved friends, with making Del Arte everything that it is. Um, And Joan was quite the nomad, as many of you know. She wandered a lot and she traveled, but she always looked forward to coming home. And I can't think of anything more appropriate than Joan's legacy being forever memorialized in the Blue Lake Charter. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Yes, come on up.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Marshall. I live in Arcata, not in Blue Lake. First time I saw Joan was somewhere around 1975, 76 maybe. I was living in San Francisco and she was, of course, playing Scar Tissue. I I mean, I didn't know that she lived in Humboldt County when I moved up to Humboldt County, and though I don't live in Blue Lake, I have watched Joan's amazing performances so many times in Blue Lake, and I'm I'm I really want to support Christina in having written this resolution and encourage all of you to pass it. Yeah.
Any other audience members? Have to look at Zoom too to
We
see.
have one more?
Is there a hand or no?
No.
Okay. Oh, yes, hello.
My name is Guru Darshan Khalsa, I live not in Blue Lake, but on West End Road in Hatchery, so almost Blue Lake. I've known Joan was a good friend, and I would say not only did Joan love Blue Lake, in a way, Joan was Blue Lake. You know, she was always at the Grange, she was at all the activities. She loved the Mayette River, and yeah, and she was Blue Lake, so we should honor her. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from audience? Okay, we'll move it back to council for the vote. There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Joan Shirley Day Proclamation. Whereas Joan Shirley was a gifted actor whose performances delighted audiences in Blue Lake and around the world, and whereas Joan Shirley was a talented playwright who, among other characters, created and performed as the iconic Private Eye Scar Tissue, and whereas Joan Shirley was instrumental in developing Del Arte's theater of place tradition, with which has preserved and enriched Blue Lake and Humboldt County history. And whereas Joan Shirley was a gifted teacher, director, and life coach to the many students who attended Del Arte or workshops she conducted elsewhere in the world, and whereas Joan Shirley was a warm, wise, and thoughtful friend who enriched the lives of many people within the broader Humboldt community, whereas Joan Shirley boldly and courageously stood up to the evils that degrade the heart by specifically making work about her own community and its local issues with pride and ferociousness. Whereas Joan Shirley made it her life's work to share her incredible talents with the people of Blue Lake. Whereas Joan Shirley was deeply committed to the preservation and protection of our natural environment in Blue Lake and Humboldt County. Whereas Joan Shirley, the Queen of Blue Lake, served her community in so many ways, from the renovation of the Lager Bar to the pancake breakfasts at the Grange. Whereas Joan Shirley was the living embodiment of a citizen and an artist. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Blue Lake award Joan Shirley the honorary title of Leading Lady of Blue Lake and henceforth officially celebrate February 4th as Joan Shirley Day.
Here, here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, very good.
Was February 4th her birthday?
Yes.
Yes.
It was her birthday.
She owned the house that my dad grew up in, so it's kind of I always loved driving by that house.
Mm.
Yeah, she gave it a good feeling.
Yeah. All right. 2 losses on the same night. Uh, yes. Let's
Sorry.
call it
Celebrate.
celebrations. I like that. All right. We are now on public comment. The public comment is invited to present petitions, make announcements, or provide other information to the City Council that is relevant to the scope of authority of the City of Blue Lake that is not on the agenda. The Council may provide up to 15 minutes for this public input session. To assure that each individual presentation is heard, the Council may uniformly impose time limitations of 3 minutes to each individual presentation. The public will be given the opportunity to address items that are on the agenda at the time the Council takes up each specific agenda item. Is there anyone here for public comment? Scott.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Scott Frazier. I live on Blue Lake Boulevard. My family and I own property in the city limits of Blue Lake. This could be related to many things on your agenda tonight and other things that have been discussed in the recent past because it all relates to your budget. I'm asking that you consider having a workshop format on your budget and what you can afford and what you can't afford. Because I think agenda item 9 is a good example of this has been in front of the council in many ways in the past, and there's been discussion about it, but it always seems it's tied to your budget and what we can afford and we can't afford. We've also had discussions at your council meetings about the silent majority, those that don't show up here to talk about these things. I think it'd be really important before you take some of the actions you're considering this evening that you have a workshop that talks about your budget and your priorities, whether or not we can afford to have the type of services we've had in the past. So I would encourage you not to take action on agenda item 9 tonight until you've had a meeting where people who hadn't heard about it,
So is this,
in my case, more than
I'm sorry, but are we supposed to talk about agenda items?
we're not talking about it. I'm saying
Oh, you're not
not
talking
talk
about it. Oh, you're talking about the
action
budget. Thank
before you
you.
have a
Sorry.
workshop.
Okay, thank you.
And again, I understand it's confusing. So
Yes,
it
thank
affects
you.
a lot of different things on your agenda. Meetings you and I both attended and meetings that are coming up. But I think it's important that this community have time to talk about what we can afford and what we can't afford. And I think you have an agenda item on the agenda tonight that reflects that. So please consider, because I'm not sticking around for your discussion on agenda item 9 most likely, but please consider delaying action on that tonight.
Thank you. Any other public comments on a non-agenda item?
We have a hand.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Hey, Buzz.
He needs to
I
unmute.
may use vibrate.
Okay. You can. Yes. Thank you. Just under 3 minutes. Very good. I see another hand. Richard? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
We're gonna have to stop this.
Well, unless it's a threat.
Find it. What is this exactly?
It's okay. Have let her have this.
Yeah, unless it's a threat. Unless it's a. Okay, your time is up, Richard. I see another hand.
Amir.
Amir?
There's gonna be another one.
Uh-oh.
Evening councils, pleasure. Like to ask for a moment of silence in remembrance for all the good servicemen who have served and currently. Just a few seconds of my own time, please. Thank you. Right, and with that, I would like everyone to remember the USS Liberty. On June 8th, in 1967, Israeli forces attacked the USS Liberty, killing 34 U.S. Navy personnel by air and sea attacks. 174 additional service members were injured during the attack, and Israel claimed that their intelligence agency identified it as an Egyptian ship, even though it was flying an American flag. Major Uri Moretz knew that the USS Liberty was an unarmed U.S. Navy intel operation, but the Israeli Air Force and Navy volunteered to the ship anyway. Oh, by the way, they made sure to target lifeboats to prevent anyone from escaping. Now, why do I bring this up? It's unrelated to the previous caller. I guess we're just thinking about the same thing tonight. The current conflict in Israel and Gaza. Right now, we have over 1,000 ground troops stationed there, again, and we have over 12 aircraft carriers carrying these USS forward. Now, what I'm worried is going to happen with American ships and servicemen so close to Israel, what's to stop them from firing a missile at our ships again? And then you blaming Hamas, blaming the innocent civilians in Gaza, and using that to siphon even more tax dollars. I mean, they get $8 million a day. A day. If your tax dollars and my tax dollars, do you want to know where that money goes to? It goes to them raping, maiming, and killing every man, woman, child, and goat that they can find on stolen land that they stole in 1947. But guess what? They're supposedly our greatest ally. I mean, why would Joe Biden's Congress be 80% Israeli dual citizens if they weren't? I mean, not only do they try and kill women and children with U.S. tax dollars, we can't even criticize them out in public because they own 96% of the media. Sony's CEO, Tom Rothman, happens to be Jewish. Paramount CEO, Bob Kesh, Jewish. Fox's CEO, Charlie Collier, Jewish. Comcast CEO, Brian Roberts, oh, surprise, he's Jewish. David Zaslav, President and CEO of Discovery Inc. and Warner Brothers. And Bob Iger right now owns the Walt Disney Company. By the way, Walt Disney would be rolling in his grave if he isn't already. I'm surprised he hasn't come back to fix the mess that they made of Disney. And now he corporates own the majority of the media that public consume. That's why you only see the pro-Israeli side in the news. That's why you only hear that on the radio. Outside of some leftist joke to go and make anyone that's not pro-Israeli seem like some sort of a crazy terrorist supporter, when in fact anyone who's supporting Israel in any way, shape, or form is supporting terrorists. Jesus said in the Bible that they are of their father the devil, and he called them the synagogue of Satan not once but twice. John 8:44 for the first quote.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public inputs for this evening?
Two more on the board.
Well, we have time for one. We have a 15-minute time.
Yeah.
Julie?
Be quick. This is Julie Christie. I just want to concur with some of our prior speakers. I really appreciate everybody giving acknowledgement for Eddie's name. And I would like to concur with Scott Fraser's commentary on the budgeting. And I would also like to reach out to Justin and council staff that if there's any way we can facilitate any better connection with what Justin's volunteering with recording. And I think it's important that we get back on Access Humboldt. And I don't know if there's a way to facilitate that. I do believe we're still enrolled with Access Humboldt. Our prior speaker is great on phone with everything else that's being spoken in the county, for city, and these levels. So I appreciate your patience, everybody there. And I appreciate everybody being here tonight. Thank you, council. Thank you, Great Rock. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Okay, that's all the time we have for public comment this evening. We're going to move on then to item 6, Public Safety Commissioner application.
Hey, stop.
Whoa.
Can we mute?
Oh, yes, just, we need to just stick it.
Can you mute everybody? Yeah, you should be able to mute everybody.
Mute all.
Yeah, there's a mute
We
all
haven't
button.
been here very much. We've been using it quite a bit. That is actually by law, we have to allow it. By law, it's not our choice.
No, no, unless it's an outright threat,
We can't prevent it.
we have to allow for free speech. It can be lying, it can be cussing, it can be calling us every name in the book. But I'm just telling the audience this as a whole to understand that's, well,
Yeah.
well,
it is. That's why
Typically, it's not like this, though.
yeah, typically.
Typically, it's not been like this. That was ridiculous.
Okay, no, no,
Yeah.
we've never had
Never.
this before.
Eureka, arcade.
Everyone's getting Zoom bombed right now.
Oh, yeah.
People come in and can't do anything about it unless they are making
That's gonna
direct threats. They can curse, say vulgar things, whatever
Yeah.
they want.
Mhm.
As long as they're not direct threats to the people in the room, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, it's not a very good system.
No, it's not.
No,
I agree.
it's called democracy. Okay, there we are. Uh,
Not sure.
we're not sure. We're figuring that out.
I was wondering when this was going to happen to us.
I know.
We don't
It's been happening everywhere else.
Well,
Super
I was wondering
unfortunate.
too. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I was talking to Stacy Atkins, former Blue Laker, about it. Okay, how are we doing? Are we on?
I think we're letting people back in, but
Yeah.
trying to control the settings, but for some reason they're able to override the settings.
Hmm.
So you do have on your packet, if we start to have technical issues or problems with the Zoom, the in-person meeting continues and
Okay.
that can be controlled.
Okay. All right. So we're still recording. Let's move on to Public Safety Commissioner application review and consideration. This is very difficult because we have 2 openings and 3 people, which obviously works out so that someone is not going to be on the commission. But I just want to always encourage people, if you're that person that doesn't get on the commission this time, there are other opportunities, many opportunities to serve your city, and they will come again. So, and I've been through this as well because I started out on art commission and tried to get on the city council. So, we've all had these experiences. Anyway, we did receive 3 applications for 2 vacancies. Kim Warvery, Blue Lake resident, Daniel Flores, Blue Lake resident, and Theodore Hales, West End Road resident, have applied for the appointment. Their respective applications are available for council's consideration. We've looked forward through these. I know some of these folks are in attendance. I was wondering if they would like to speak a little bit on why you want to be on the Public Safety Commission commission. So, Kimberly Swabbery, would you like to make a comment? Yeah, I'm sorry. You have to be microphone, but really, it's not that scary. Yeah, okay. I have that myself.
Hi, I'm Kim Morby. I have lived here in Blue Lake my whole life. I grew up out on West End Road. I live here in town now. I have 2 boys. They attend Blue Lake School. My kids are my priority. I want to keep them safe, and I want to keep the rest of the community safe as well. And starting off with the Public Safety Commission is a good way to go about it and to get my foot in the door and learn the ins and outs and how things work. And yeah, please consider me.
Thank you,
Kim.
Kim. Thank you. Well done. Okay, is Daniel Flores in the house?
He was.
He was just here.
Oh, they've got fire council right or
The fire department stuff right now. Isn't he in the fire department?
Yeah, he was standing there in
Yeah.
uniform, so
Yeah.
he might have left.
Oh, I think because they have the fire department meeting tonight.
Okay. Theodore Hales?
Hi, I'm Ted Hales. I served with the military police detachment in Eureka from 1987 to 2004 when I was transferred away. Spent 24 years of active duty with the United States Military Police Corps. And also, in that time here in Humboldt County, developed relationships with a lot of the local law enforcement and still know a number of people who are currently serving with the various law enforcement departments in the area. I've had a long life of public service and a nice little break, and I think I have something to contribute more in public service to communities. I live out on West End Road. I've been out there for 6-7 years now, and I consider Blue Lake home. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. We have 3 that I mentioned very well appointed applicants too, very qualified applicants. So this is a very difficult decision to make. Okay. What is the pleasure of the council?
Well, it's not to rain on anybody's parade, but I think that our municipal code states that preference will be given to persons that live within the city limits. So, that may be making your decision.
I was actually thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about
Yeah.
the policy.
Okay.
So we do have 2 Blue Lake residents on the list.
Right. We have 2 Blue Lake residents and 1 person outside that is also within our sphere of influence who would otherwise be qualified to serve on the commission. So I don't know. I might suggest that since Ted does have some qualifications that don't otherwise exist on the commission, that he be asked or considered as an advisory commissioner, and that we appoint the other 2 commissioners.
I think that would require some changes to our to the policy of our
So
commission.
should you be recusing yourself from this, honestly?
No, I don't.
Well, since
No?
I just mentioned that he's not as qualified as the other people to be on there, I don't
Just
think so.
wondering,
From a
that
vote.
would be
I
a
don't
conflict
know.
of interest, and she's not. This is not
No?
any
Okay. I'm
there's
just
no money
curious.
being made from this
Okay.
appointment or
Okay.
anything. But any other title to be put on this commission would mean a restating of what our commission is made up of. Is that
Yeah, so
your
your
understanding?
your public safety commission doesn't have advisory positions, but there's nothing that precludes people from participating.
Right.
And it's a really active, it's always an active dialogue, and everyone is invited to participate and give feedback. So I don't know that there's a necessary reason to create or change your code, knowing that anyone can participate in those discussions.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public for any comments. Yes.
Scott Frazier. In the past, you've had, I think, even a chairman who lived outside of the city limits, correct? So
Possibly.
it might be worth considering what sort of a mixture you want to have of people representing public safety interests that live in the city limits that are more confined and generally the larger community. But it'd be good for those of us in the community to know if you have guidelines that influence whether you give priorities in the past to appointing people from inside or outside the city limits. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item?
I've got 2 of that too.
Angela Dare. I just wanted to say that I'm aware that Ted volunteers a lot of his time to the city of Blue Lake, and that's greatly appreciated. And we would want someone on the safety commission that is so involved. Just want to add that.
We have 2 people on Zoom. Julia? Julia, you're on. Julie. Can't hear you.
It's us. It's us. We're
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
to give us a little information about them and what their goals are. That's really awesome. It's unfortunate that we don't have more positions open. I would highly recommend that whatever applicant is in put in position tonight, that they look into other openings that we have within our positions and really support their activities. And our applicants that our next planning commissioner, I would advise, if you haven't already, going back through Justin's recordings and some that are on Access Humboldt, the reviewing prior things. That's a great time as well. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
It's Ken.
Oh, Kent Sawatsky.
Okay, there we go. You're on, Ken.
Just a lot here. Yeah, like already see how I die. If you kill me or whatever, or another, you don't another safety case. You never know. So I rated all schools, didn't appreciate all schools. But you don't think more other than this your teammates have to right to regard as safety anyway. And one of the fire departments and the other one is law enforcement should be represented by the sheriff. My honestly view is that I would be the last person to want to go ahead and run the fire department. So we encourage, if you're going to serve the public on the between me, I'd be hoping that you would be able to support the overall reception and desire of the citizens like to continue to have quality law enforcement, community being provided on a reasonable cost, I'm sure. And so that would be my question for you. Are you willing to support the citizens having quality crime fighting and law enforcement and continuation of it, not having to be interrupted or negotiated away or trying to get it? So we have to be in a conversation if you're willing to.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, back to council for the motion and vote.
I would like to move that we appoint Daniel Flores and Kim Warby to the Public Safety Commission.
I second that. Second.
Motion made by Elise Scafani, seconded by Chris Edgar to appoint Kim Warbry and Daniel Flores to the Public Safety Commission. Is there any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're buying, right?
Okay. All right. Item 7 was postponed. We're now on item 8, the Blue Lake Power Lease Agreement update.
Yeah, so just to provide an update, Ryan wasn't available at the time we were putting the agenda together. He was actually gone on holiday. So I talked to Ryan today about where we are in the process. As I stated, we've filed a legal filing with Humboldt County Superior Court, and we're in the process right now of serving the papers. The individual that we are has been identified through the lease as the designated representative, has not been contacted yet by the process server. They've tried several times. So we have to go through a process of trying to make that contact. And then if that's unsuccessful, that information will be brought back. The process server will sign an affidavit of basically stating their method of and the number of times that they attempted to serve the paperwork, and then that will be taken to the court. So we are just in that process right now.
Is there any indication of how much longer that might go?
Ryan stated that it's usually like maybe up to 7 or 8 times or attempts to serve, and then after that, and apparently the process server has made several attempts at this point. So I think it's probably on a short time frame right now.
So there's a time frame of how many attempts per, there's a number of attempts that have to be made. Plus, there's probably a time frame after that, right? Something along those lines.
Well, so then that information will be sent to the court as part of our filing, in support of our filing, that the attempt was made to serve. The attempt was not successful, but the city made and acted and with due process and due diligence to make that attempt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And this company is from Chicago area or something like that? Is it
Yeah.
further?
Which is the shell company owned by some China.
Yeah, oh, I
Mhm.
know.
Never met.
All right, well, we need to be kept updated on this issue because the actual date of the lease sunsetting is 2025, which approaches us. So it's good to see movement on this item.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this item?
A hand on the board.
Yeah, so what's
Here on Ken. Yep.
I appreciate the update. I know that you've been in arrears for years now. It's one question you might need to ask is, and maybe not here, when you're hard to hear sometimes with different. What was the process initiated as far as making that hard for your active here? The question, that's why I'm trying to hear a lot of prior to January, public could look down. And I told my people there, there's a cover, we have that, so the question I have for your city manager was having to, salary demolition without paying permit, or an issue, and how the concern regarding having that component that addresses fires and what they're doing. I'm hearing down there without the correct permission, we need to go through all kinds of work guides regarding water control and all these other things. But that was the question I was getting you would like to know. I know it's how they look, and so I appreciate them asking questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to let people know, the city is asking the court to award the city the past due lease payments, which they have been in arrears for a few months here, and past due utility payments, damages, and possession of the property. And the property is supposed to be given back to us in the condition that it was rented to them. So if anyone remembered, it was a flat piece of land, nothing on it.
So,
All right.
that did bring up a couple of pertinent questions. So, Mandy, can you tell us, have there been any demolition permits issued, and is there any salvage ongoing at this
Nope.
time?
There's no demolition permits because there's no demolition taking place.
And technically, they're still in a lease until it goes to the court system, so we can't touch it anyway.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Well, you had mentioned previously that there were some salvagers on the property.
They were doing cleanup, but they have
Yeah.
not salvaged anything,
Okay.
and they're well within their rights to do the cleanup.
Okay. Interesting. We are now on item 9, Humboldt County Sheriff Law Enforcement contract update and staff recommendation to consider exercising options to terminate and enter into renegotiations. General information on June 10th, 2023, the city was notified in writing that the sheriff was increasing the city's contract for basic law enforcement services from $145,000 to $315,000 with no increase in service levels starting July 1st, 2023. The contract between the City of Blue Lake and Humboldt County allows the sheriff to conduct a yearly computation of expenses and to propose an increase based upon actual costs. The contract language encourages both parties to discuss potential increases and to reach an agreeable and equitable number. The contract also allows the city to appeal the cost proposal in the event that the city does not agree to the final number. The city was not notified of the potential increase prior to receiving the letter, nor was the city invited to discuss the increase prior to receiving the letter. The city made several attempts to meet with the sheriff to discuss the increases, but the sheriff has been unwilling to actively engage in any type of negotiation. The sheriff is basing the increase on a per capita calculation for services. To date, the sheriff has not provided the city with a breakdown of costs associated with this calculation, nor is this increase supported by the call data provided to the city by the sheriff's office. At the October council meeting, Sheriff Hansel made a presentation to the council and the community. He stated that the city of Blue Lake consistently has over 2,000 calls for service per year. This number is not accurate, as it includes the calls for service in the city of Blue Lake, along with a sphere of influence that includes the Rancheria Casino, Fieldbrook, Essex, Glendale, Highway 299, Redwood Valley, Chesham Road, Maple Creek, West End Road, and several miles past the Redwood Creek Bridge on Highway 299. In reviewing the call data, staff was able to extrapolate the calls associated with the city of Blue Lake only. Using the last 6 months of call data, the city of Blue Lake generated less than 250 incidents. These incidents include calls that were transferred to the fire department, patrol checks when deputies drive through town, public assists, warnings, accidental dials, billable alarm calls, and only 3 citations and 4 arrests. These numbers clearly show that the city of Blue Lake has a minimal crime rate, and the burden on the sheriff to respond to the city of Blue Lake does not warrant a doubling of the contract amount. It is also important to note that the sheriff has increased the contract for basic law enforcement services for the city of Trinidad. Trinidad's contract has increased to over 200,000, but their contract computation was based upon the cost of a deputy and overhead costs associated with various departments within the sheriff department. This calculation is not consistent with the calculation used for the city of Blue Lake's increase. The city of Blue Lake operates a small municipal budget. The cost increase proposed by the sheriff is approximately 1/3 of the city's overall budget. This amount is not sustainable based upon current revenue projections, and staff does not feel that it is warranted based upon the level of service provided by the sheriff or the call volume for the city. Staff is recommending that the city council consider terminating the contract with the sheriff and make a formal request to enter into negotiations for a new contract. Staff further recommends that the council formally request that this contract issue be brought before the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors, and that Supervisors Wilson and Madrone be part of the negotiating process. As the Board of Supervisors is the entity that approves the contract on behalf of the county, it is appropriate that this contract issue be elevated to their level. Staff further recommends that the City Council formally request that the Board of Supervisors consider freezing any increases until fair and equitable negotiations can take place, and that the first quarterly payment made to the sheriff be applied against a future contract amount. Background material provided is our current law enforcement contract, our call log provided by the sheriff's office, and call data for calls located in the city of Blue Lake only. The fiscal impact: the proposed increase will result in a budget deficit of approximately $160,000 and will require the city to adopt a budget amendment and utilize general funds revenue to make up for the shortfall. The recommended action is to direct the staff to draft a letter to the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors requesting that the increase to the city's contract be brought before the board for discussion, and that the Board of Supervisors consider appointing Supervisors Madrone and Wilson to a negotiating team to work with the sheriff and the city to reach a negotiated contract amendment that is agreeable to all parties. And 2, The other recommended action is that council consider exercising the city's right to terminate the agreement with the sheriff and exercise the option to enter into negotiations for a new contract. Okay.
Then we got
Then-
communication.
Then we got some communication from the sheriff. And as soon as I can find it, I will read it as well. Yes. So thank you, dear. Okay. Okay, this letter from the sheriff is dated November 28th, 2023.
28th
20
today.
28th
Yes.
today.
I thought you said 20th.
28th, 2023. All right. From the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office. Dear City Manager Maker, in reviewing agenda items number 9 for the Blue Lake City Council meeting scheduled for 11/28/23, I noted the city will be considering termination of the contract to provide law enforcement services. I recognize the importance of being fiscally responsible with budget limitations. I would ask that you table the contract termination discussion at the City Council meeting and we schedule an in-person meeting in the next 30 days to discuss the existing contract and some areas where we can discuss lowering the cost burden on the city. If the City Council chooses not to table the action item, there are some things they should consider. In my research, the City of Blue Lake does not have to provide law enforcement services to the city residents. Government Code 845 states neither a public entity nor a public employee is liable for failure to establish a police department or otherwise to provide public protection service, or if police protection service is provided for failure to provide sufficient police protection service. Also in my research, I find that the sheriff office is not obligated to provide law enforcement services for a municipality. Government Code 26600 establishes the powers of a sheriff. It does not mandate the sheriff's office provides law enforcement services to an established municipality. It is important to outline what services the city would no longer receive if the contract were terminated. Effective the date of termination, the sheriff office will no longer provide general law enforcement services. This includes all misdemeanor crimes and all property crimes, such as residential and commercial burglary, petty and grand theft, vandalism, vehicle theft, and narcotics related offenses. We will no longer enforce any city ordinance, including those related to noise complaints, abandoned vehicles, or parking issues. In addition, any traffic related offenses, DUI enforcement, or traffic collisions will not be investigated by our office. All calls for service regarding a public nuisance, public disturbance, suspicious persons, and or vehicles will not garner a response. The sheriff's office will not respond to audible alarms or complaints about intoxicated people. Random law enforcement patrols will also cease at the termination of the contract. The Sheriff's Office Emergency Communications Center will continue to field all 911 calls that come from the city residents. We will continue to forward medical aid and fire calls as per our current protocols. The Sheriff's Office is committed to providing the best law enforcement services possible. It would be unfortunate if the city terminates its agreement with the Sheriff's Office, but I understand the fiscal implications of the configured rate. The city residents should not go unprotected while government officials debate what professional law enforcement services should cost. The Sheriff's Office will respond to all felony crimes against persons calls, missing persons cases, and domestic violence incidents if the contract is terminated. As previously explained, the city can seek law enforcement service from other municipality and or form their own police department, which may prove more cost effective. If the city terminates the contract, I encourage the city to enter contract negotiations immediately. Services can be cut to lower the costs of the contract. If the city chooses to continue with the current agreement, which is set to expire on June 30th, 2024, I recommend we immediately begin the negotiation process for a successor contract. It has been an honor and a privilege to provide law enforcement services to the citizens of Blue Lake, and we would like to continue that relationship. Please let us know if you have any questions or need any clarifications. I can be reached at a number or by email. Sincerely, William F. Hansel, Sheriff, and Brian Quinnell, Captain. I need some water.
Well, while you're doing that, I would like to thank our city manager for continuing to fight for us, the city, because, yeah, that was a huge increase. And I think just saying that we would pay that right away, I think Mandy did her due diligence in this case to really fight for the city, so that we are not spending too much for law enforcement.
Basically extortion. What they're doing.
Well,
Because they're not going through the proper channels and they're threatening if we don't do it, they're not going to do it.
Well, particularly in light
Yeah.
of the fact that all of a sudden now they're willing to negotiate,
Yeah.
but not negotiate back before the contract was set to expire anyway.
Yeah.
And Mandy, would you explain a little further about how the Board of Supervisors is involved in our contract? Because this was kind of something new to me because I thought we as a city negotiated directly with the sheriff and that's how it was worked out. But as I understand it, our negotiation with the sheriff also depends on the county budget through the Board of Supervisors. So would you give us a little more background on that?
Sure. So the city of Blue Lake doesn't contract with the sheriff. We contract with the county of Humboldt for services. The sheriff receives his budget allocation from the county. The sheriff is an elected official, and so the board of supervisors doesn't manage the sheriff, but they do manage his budget. So anytime you have a contract, there's a process for accepting revenue, for expending funds, for amending a contract. We have an existing contract, and there's a process for posing a computation for an increase. But there's also a process for processing that increase, which is a contract amendment, and that's the process that hasn't hasn't been followed. So in order for an increase to go forward, you'd need a contract amendment which would then ultimately be approved or discussed and then subsequently possibly approved by the Board of Supervisors and the City Council. It's not enough just to write a letter stating that your contract is increasing. And it's also really important to make sure that cost increases are balanced and that they are defensible. These are taxpayer dollars. And so having a discussion and being at the table with the sheriff, I think is really critical. It's a place where we haven't been yet, to really go through costs and look at what are the effects on the sheriff's budget. Obviously, we all know that inflation plays a key role in everyone's costs and everyone's budgets. But it's also important for us to make sure, and especially in my position as city manager, to make sure that the city's um, costs and expenses are justifiable. And I, at this point, I don't feel that they are, and we need more information and we need to have a better discussion. I think it's important for the Board of Supervisors to be involved in this process because that's the Board of Supervisors. We also have a representative from the county. So we have Mike Wilson as our representative, Steve Madrone as our representative. We're both two small contract cities that are affected by this. And so the conversation I requested that the conversation be elevated to that level because I feel that that's the appropriate place for it to be taking place. I just received, in fact, I actually read the letter on Facebook, which was really interesting that it was sent to me. I didn't get my email at the time, and for some reason it got posted on Facebook before I even got to read it. So I received this. I read this letter around 3:30 today. And I'm grateful that the sheriff is taking this position and recognizing that a legitimate discussion, should be had, and that that there are areas for us to have discussion on services and costs. And I don't anticipate that our current contract is the same contract that we'll receive in the future, which not the increase, but the 145 that I feel is the starting place. I think there are going to be some increases associated with that, and that's okay to discuss. But we need to have that discussion. So I I agree with the sheriff's recommendation that the council um, make the decision or to enter into those negotiations and start these discussions. And I think that's where we should have been at the start of this.
Uh, with the safety commission also trying to make contact, should
Mhm.
we even attempt still, or we should let them go forward with what they talked about?
Yeah, so I actually had a meeting with the ad hoc committee today.
Okay.
We had a meeting scheduled prior to receiving this letter, and so they've been doing a lot of research and investigation. We did a lot of work to extrapolate that call data so that we could subtract that larger sphere of influence that was really influencing those numbers and really start to look at what are the impacts to the city of Blue Lake. So they've been doing a lot of research on that. They've been researching what other contract cities do, and so they have some really good information. And so tonight we also discussed the letter because it's the first time that we had all seen it, and they felt kind of the same way, that this is a good place to be, that this is a good discussion to have now, and kind of letting everything else go, and let's get to the table as two government agencies, and let's have a valuable discussion where everyone has comes out of it feeling that they're receiving something of benefit. We know that we need to pay for law enforcement services, and we know that the sheriff provides a valuable service. We just have to have it, just has to be equitable.
So with all that being said, with the ad hoc, the sheriff correspondence, um, what would be, I know that this proposal that we have written down here is not going to go forward. What would be staff's new recommendations on top of that?
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be to contact the sheriff and take him up on his offer to have a meeting. I think the council should designate two members to be part of the process. I think we should stand firm, though, that we would like our county representatives also to be at that table, because I think they're definitely a player. Um, in this discussion, and we see how those first discussions, go. I think the sheriff he understands we have budget limitations, and the supervisors understand that. So really, it's just to figure out, can we meet in the middle? Is there something reasonable on both sides where we both feel that, like I said, we're both receiving something of benefit?
And I would be more than happy to be one of the people that represents the city from the council. And
I
we
would like to
just-
be one too.
And so would I. And I really
Yeah.
think that it's not ad hoc material. Last month when the sheriff was here and he was asked, would you be available for further discussions? He said yes. And so this isn't, he didn't just all of a sudden today say, hey, I'll talk to you. He said he would talk to us a month ago, and he said months earlier that he was available to have these conversations. So I think it's not really fair to say, oh, all of a sudden he's willing to talk to us. He's been willing to talk for a long time.
He hasn't been willing to
Actually,
negotiate at
no,
the table.
because I remember you
That's a
bringing
very
forward
different
that he
position.
said
Yeah.
he would not negotiate with us.
Mhm.
Right. And what
Absolutely.
So
what he's
this is
talking
new,
about
and
here,
now
This
we're going
is
to
new.
negotiate.
well, what he's talking about here, we don't know what he can negotiate, what he's willing to take out of the service, and how that's going to affect price. But the point being that he's been willing to talk to us for months,
I disagree.
and we haven't all gotten to the table. And I think it's a mistake at this point to break the council down into smaller pieces. I think we all need to be at the table, and that this conversation should happen where everybody can be a part of it.
We can't do that.
Yes, we can.
About
We absolutely can. And the ad hoc committee from the Public Safety Commission can come to that meeting. The entire Public Safety Commission can come to that
If
meeting.
the whole council is there, then it becomes an open meeting.
Then it is a meeting, exactly. It's an open meeting.
It's
It's
not
a
a
public
negotiation
meeting,
at
and
that
it's
Then
not.
it's not a
It
negotiation,
can't,
and that's
the
a separate kind
negotiations
of
cannot be
meeting.
public.
It's a separate kind of meeting.
And I'm having a real hard time with this position, Councilmember Scafani. I mean, I really feel that this is a good place for the city to be. to have this conversation about legitimate costs, and I don't understand why the push for the sheriff's side of things. We're in a position now where we can
I'm
have a
pushing.
conversation.
I'm not pushing for the sheriff. I'm pushing for
No,
everybody in
absolutely.
this room and everybody in this town. And I think we all, at this point in time, have a right to be part of the conversation.
And we
I don't
we
think
all are. We all are here. We are all here for the safety of this town.
hmm
The difference is that we want negotiations. We don't have the money to afford it. It's a third of our budget.
It's
You
not a
can't
third. It's
have a
actually
big
23%.
Why would
you
you want the
can't
city
have
to
an
pay more, Councilmember
Close to
Scafani,
have a
if we can
big
get it for
sale
less?
to provide services for the sheriff. I mean, there's just no way that's going to happen. So I want to assure the citizens of this town that we are going to have police protection,
Absolutely.
and negotiations is a good thing. It
hmm
happens a lot with a lot of different entities, and it's important that we have it. And the Board of Supervisors, the two members agreeing to be part of this is wonderful because they should be, because it's part of their budget.
hmm
So I think we're on the right track here,
But
and I
but I also
think we
feel
should
like
move forward.
too, if negotiations didn't happen prior to July 1, as is part of the contract, right? Then we almost need to start from there.
Yeah,
Like we missed that whole opportunity,
absolutely.
right? To do closed door
hmm
negotiations, then bring that information to council, to public. So it's almost like I feel like we are so far out of line from how the process should work. We need to go back to the negotiations
hmm
piece, bring it back to council and public, go back and negotiate or whatever that looks like.
hmm
Um, but that's the logical sense that I see.
hmm I agree.
Agreed.
So
Mm-hmm.
in our agenda review committee meeting a week ago yesterday, I asked you to have our attorney present for this meeting so he could talk to us about the legality of this agenda item. Did you ask him to do that?
So he was not available. He was out on holiday. And I did present this to him this morning when he was available, and he said that there's not a problem with this. There's no problem with this. This is us sitting at the table with our, who we contract with for law enforcement services to come to a resolution on an equitable position.
Right.
This is a positive step. The city is
Absolutely.
looking to make sure that, of course, we have law enforcement services, but that we're paying a fair and equitable rate for that. I don't see how there's an argument with that. We're not
Well,
losing law enforcement
Honestly,
services. We've
I'm
never
not
talked
arguing
about
with
losing
you.
it.
I just asked you a simple question.
I believe
And
you honestly are because you brought forth that we need to go into negotiations. You said that he wasn't able to go into negotiations. You said you don't want to negotiate and you want to just pay the fee. Now he's willing to come forward and negotiate, and you don't want to go into negotiations.
Chris, that's not what I said, is it?
But
It
That's not what
is.
I said. No, it isn't.
Okay.
Okay, right now we're having a discussion amongst the council persons. I will be opening this up for public. So please hold on to your thoughts while we fully hash this out at our level, and then we'll open it up and bring it back if we need more questions or clarification. Um,
Mandy brought up a number of things about the contract that I didn't understand in the way that she presented them. So that was one of the reasons why I would like to hear from Ryan so he can interpret
what
some of the
can I
contractual
answer those?
language.
What were those questions?
yeah, what questions
Some of the
do you
things
have?
about negotiations and the price increases being something that need to be negotiated and accepted by both sides. I didn't read that in this contract when I read it before, so I'm not sure how to interpret that.
Well, all contract amendments have to be approved through a process. You don't just get to increase a contract one-sided. So any revenues and expenditures need to be approved by the Board of Supervisors. It's a budget amendment. So if he's increasing revenues by increasing a contract, the County Board of Supervisors has to accept that as a budget amendment. It's a revenue increase.
Okay.
Yeah, our contract with the sheriff affects the budget of our board of supervisors, of our county
Of the
board.
county.
So just as we have to do budget amendments when something comes up mid-year sometimes or towards the end of the year, We have to change some items. A budget is a plan. It's not set in stone, but it is a guide for you to go by. And
But a
when it's
contract
something,
is binding.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All of this is what we wanted and what the public wanted. We want to keep a contract and we want to go into negotiations to make it fair priced.
Absolutely.
It's a
Yeah,
win-win,
here we are.
really.
Yeah.
Yay, we're right where we want to be.
Yeah.
Good.
6 months later.
Yeah. But the contract is up on July 30th, 2024.
Right.
So we have time.
Well, but we need to negotiate because he's requesting an increase. But we don't know we don't know.
Yeah.
We haven't been at the table with the sheriff to actually negotiate. We've had a lot of one-sided discussions. We've had a lot of commentary, but we haven't actually had discussions to really drill down on costs. I haven't seen any of those calculations. I haven't seen anything to justify those numbers. And so this is a good place to be for the city. We're not losing law enforcement. The goal has never been to lose law enforcement, and it's not to reduce services. We have the most basic level of service right now you can receive for $145,000, and the proposal to increase it to $315,000 was for the exact same service we're paying $145,000 for right now. It wasn't for any increases, and so we're not looking at decreasing. We're just looking at paying a fair and equitable share for those services.
Okay.
I would like to reiterate that I would like to be on the team
And I
that
would,
meets with the sheriff.
I would like to be also.
And so would
Okay.
I.
So we'll make a decision about that. If there's no other discussion here, we will discuss more. I will open it up to the public if that's a good time for that. So is there any public input on this item? Now is the time. Ted and then Dana and Jean.
Hi there. I hear a lot of talk about fair and equitable. Well, the fact of the matter is that the state grant funding is funded the entirety of Blue Lake's law enforcement through the sheriff, through the contract, through the cops fund. And so the city has been really, really getting off easy by not having to pay any monies out of the general fund because of the use of the cops contract for the majority of your service. And so I think that fair and equitable is kind of doesn't apply here. The sheriff has been pretty word I'm looking for clear about pointing out that the cost of the service is not tied to call volume. Yet what we hear is a lot of talk about call volume. It's like, do you not fund your fire department because call volume is too low? Well, you want your fire department. Well, you want your sheriff's department because regardless of call volume, it'd be great to have, no call volume and have your sheriff here because that means there's no crime being committed. So that's a misdirection, really, to talk about call volume when you're talking about the sheriff's service. We're not, the Blue Lake is not the only municipality where the prices are going up. Price is also going up because all of the weed money that was coming in that they carved off of the sheriff has dropped a lot, and so they've lost a lot of money themselves. And the negotiation that the sheriff's talking about in his letter that you're happy about, which I'm happy about too. Your negotiation is to reduce service. That's exactly what it says. The wording in there says reduce service, Mandy. So you better quit just acting like a teenager and bobbing your head and rolling your eyes because it's rude as hell.
Okay. You have a right, but I'm offended.
Yeah, I think there's.
Okay.
Law enforcement is important. And what we have here is we have city officials playing money games. Okay? That's my opinion. And it's based on what I've been observing, how you act and what you say. The sheriff's contract has nothing to do with call volume. So you might quit talking about that and start talking about the actual service that you get. When you look at the percentage of the budget that goes here from law enforcement and compare it to Arcata, Trinidad, Eureka, Rio Dell, you pay the least per capita and as a percentage of your city budget. You pay the least. So talk about fair and equitable. Maybe you should raise your price and pay up to the 30% that other municipalities pay instead of the 24%. Thank you.
Dana, and then I think Jean, you were third, and then, okay, Wendy, and then Jenny. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to let you know that there was a man who's apparently mentally ill who is climbing around in blackberries and poison oak with, in shorts and a bare chest, getting exposed to all these, what it's like with blackberries and poison oak. So I called the health department and they said, we don't provide services to someone who's disturbed. The sheriff, so call the sheriff. So I called the sheriff. They never called me back. They never showed up. Zero.
That's the services we pay for currently.
Let's see. I think Jean, you were next, and then Wendy, and then Jenny.
Hi, I'm Jean. I live in Blue Lake. In the agenda report, it states that the contract also allows the city to appeal the cost proposal in the event that the city does not agree to the final number. I don't remember the council having an appeal, was an appeal process. And the comment about the council members forming an ad hoc committee, I would think would be perfect. And to go with Mandy, and within 30 days, meet with Sheriff stated in the letter to try to clarify whatever charges can be reduced, how we can do that, how we can work with the city. I think the next helped with the neighborhood watch. I would think that working with neighborhood watch could reduce patrols. That would reduce some of the patrolling costs. Simple solutions like that, and getting everybody involved, cameras, to reduce the cost to the sheriff and then reduce the cost to the city would be helpful. And I really would hate to see the sheriff's contract canceled in any way, shape, or form. All of our municipal codes, any rule of law that has been created by the city of Blue Lake will not be enforced. Weren't it, even a simple matter of the speed limit on Greenwood Avenue, which we have at 15 miles an hour, is not going to be enforced in any way, shape, or form. And I hate to see that happen. That's a blow to the city safety, mainly I would think for children, for the elderly, for anybody trying to get through the streets of Blue Lake, and then having safety for property. If there's a response, there is no response for somebody breaking a window of your car. It's not going to be very pleasant. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Wendy, I think, was next, then Jenny, and then I think I saw Becky, your hand up. Okay, Wendy. Oh.
I've been a victim of robbery in this town. And this is going to have to stop. My house was broken into July of 2022. My house was ransacked. I had things taken. My parents have blown my parents. And one of the things is a gold cross my father had given my mother when he asked her to marry him. And picture my father and thinking, no, disaster. And then some tools were taken out of my. I can't help this. It's too much. You know, when the next time they're going to come and break in your house and kill you. They stole a gun that I had as a police issue revolver. That was in 2022. I heard of people that said, oh, I was offered that gun. The case has not been solved. My things have not been come back. I had things very special to me taken. And then the tools taken belonged to my worker who was working for me. We were gone a half hour. Person comes in my driveway, takes those tools, tried to break in my back slider, and went through the gate. And when this happened, I can't help it. This is too much. This truck was stolen out of my driveway. My truck. I work to clean my property outside. I'm a good neighbor and take care of people that need help to take things to wherever it needs to go and give donations to people. I'm just starting to get back to living. And they take this. They knocked my whole gate down and left me vulnerable. This is the kind of people we have living in this area that are taking and then coming into my house and taking my things, ransacking my house, leaving me destitute. You can't explain how it feels. That's all I have to say. I do hope we keep some kind of law enforcement here. The sheriff's trying to do their work. But they can't do anything until a crime happens. So we need to come together as a community and we need to find out who is doing this stuff and get them off the street and keep them off the street because they release people out. They can do the same thing again. That's what happened to me. Thank you. God bless everyone here.
Thank you for your comments, Wendy. For Jenny? And then Becky, and then Darcy, and we have some people on Zoom.
So my name's Jenny Short. I live in Blue Lake as well. I grew up in Blue Lake. I lived here when we had our own police departments. And I'm only here because I was shocked to find out that tonight we have a city manager that is recommending that we terminate an agreement with the police department, sheriff's department for our police services. So um, from my perspective as a taxpayer and somebody who lives in this community and cares about this community and volunteers in this community and has children that walk around in this community, the fact that 5 months ago you guys were notified that you had an increase that was coming and nothing's been done to get anything resolved seems like failure, both on the council's part and also on Mandy's part as the city manager. If it needed to go to the board of supervisors, waiting 5 months, and until we got to the point where we were beyond the point where we were even paying our own bills, doesn't seem like the place that we should have waited until. And so my encouragement to the council is that you be far more aggressive about moving forward with this. And I don't know that the board of supervisors is going to be, this perfect solution that you're hoping for. But I would like to know as a community member, the plan you have moving forward in this negotiation, including your board of supervisors, your two people, have they agreed to do that? And are they actually on board with helping to represent Trinidad and Blue Lake at the table on behalf of those communities with the sheriff? Or is this just our hoping that they're willing to do that and we're really on our own?
Good question.
Thank you, Jenny. I think it was Becky next. And then Darcy, did you have your hand up as well? Okay, and then we have people on Zoom. Hi, Becky.
I just want to say I'm glad the sheriff sent that letter and that he wants to negotiate now. Would have been nice to have this a long time ago. But as I'm seeing, you guys are concerned about your budget and everything else. But for the last 3 years during the pandemic and everything else, I have went through the budget and all of your stuff for the last 7 years. And I have found that money is just spent all over the place. As you can't figure anything out, it's all shuffled around.
You keep moving things from one place to another. You've just spent $55,000 toward a project that may never happen. There's money there that could have been spent on law enforcement instead. There's all kinds of things that are being done that could have been done a little bit more efficiently to at least have that budget available and money available for this if it ever came across or came up. But I am glad their negotiations are going to happen.
Thank you for your comment, Becky. Darcy, were you next?
Well, I think there's a lot of assumptions from the crowd about what they know about budgeting and what has taken place between the council and the sheriff. But like Wendy, I was also had 3 years ago on Mother's Day when we had the same sheriff contract that we have now, the $145 or $50,000, the services that included. I had my truck and trailer stolen out from outside my house, and I do know what it feels like, Wendy. It's super humiliating and kind of a hopeless feeling. But what's really more hopeless than getting your things stolen is the fact that once the sheriffs a day later come to take my uh, story, they know who stole my truck. The same stuff that was stolen probably from Wendy's and all over this town is stolen by the same little group of people. And and unfortunately, the voters voted, because the language is so confusing, to keep the prisons and jails open for violent offenders. So we have voted to keep our jails for violent offenders. And therefore, when someone does like petty theft or robbery, or they're naked in the bushes in the Poison Oak and going crazy, stealing, making nuisances of themselves in all kinds of ways, hiking onto private property when they shouldn't be, the police don't do anything about it because there's no space in the jail, or there's just this new law that the jails are for violent offenders. So when after a couple bicycles got stolen, my truck with my horse trailer hitched to it gets stolen, I asked, and this goes back to community awareness and helping each other and community watch and all that, I asked my landlord, please be willing to put a camera or a motion sensor light. And my landlord, who's born and raised in Blue Lake, said no, but you can if you want. So it's a bigger problem than Mandy's agreement with the sheriff. It's a bigger problem. We got to watch each other. And I've never seen a sheriff stop anybody for speeding on Greenwood.
Your time's up. Thank you for your comments. Robert Russo's had his hand up. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I couldn't see you back there.
Robert Russo, been here whole life. I was on a meeting that we got rid of the sheriff, our police department, which I thought was really bad. Bill Cure, I think it's Bill, might be he was the main instigator of it, and he doesn't live here anymore. So we're living with a situation that I didn't think we needed to do. Maybe we can answer a couple questions. Is that sheet correct on our budget for the police department? The 315,000, or what is our budget for the police department?
So the 315 is the increase that they're requesting. Right now, we had budgeted for about 145,000.
Yeah, so that's what and we lowered that from 275 or somewhere because we lost it was equitable to lose that other sheriff. We had two, we went to one.
No, so the sheriff could not fulfill the positions, and so they requested that we reduce it down to 145. Well, it was 122 because they could not provide any dedicated patrols in Blue Lake anymore because they had the lack of staffing. So we have no dedicated patrols. We have nothing except basic level of service right now.
Okay, and so they made that negotiation. We should be able to make a negotiation in our favor using that as a little bit of power or just a conversation. So the the amount we have in the budget now, after we have this budget's over. Are we on July? Is our budget?
Yeah, we're fiscal year.
Yeah. So
July 1st to June 30th.
so we have this time, and do we have enough funds in that account to keep this service going? What we're currently obligated to do.
It's good till July.
So that
We've budgeted for what the contract was when we went into
Right.
our budget cycle, not for the 315 that they're proposing.
did he give us a bill for more? And are we obligated to pay that by way of our attorney?
That's where the negotiations. That's why we're trying to get to the table because we don't feel that we've
Okay.
gone through the process.
So
We paid a quarter of it.
so are we obligated to pay that bill?
Yeah.
Even though he didn't negotiate, he gave us a bill. Are we obligated to pay it?
Yes, we are.
That's where we're obligated to pay for law enforcement. The question is how much. And that's what we're trying to get to the table.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Time's up, right?
Yeah, we have people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that.
Lori?
Lori Ponte. Yeah, hi. Okay, cool. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it's been an interesting conversation to hear, and I do appreciate all the different opinions. It's also been difficult to hear, so I just want to let you know that the Zoom feed hasn't been real clear most of the time. So it sounds like if the sheriff's office has sent this bill, I would think that they didn't do it randomly, that the county must have been aware, since they're part of the whole budgeting process for the sheriff's department. So I think that asking our supervisors and the board of supervisors to answer some questions about that is fair to the city to know what they knew ahead of time before the sheriff's department just sent this increase. I'd also like to know what the city council's potential plan is for these negotiations falling apart. If the sheriff's department, who was there last month where I attended, they were pretty clear about why they needed the increase and what they could do. It wasn't fuzzy at all to hear about what they needed the cost to be. It wasn't pleasant for anybody to hear the increase. But the city council needs to have, I would hope, a discussion and a clear plan about what they will do for the residents of the town in case we don't, the negotiations fall apart. And then I also would like to know what the city is planning to do to pay their obligation for this quarter, which will be due the end of December and not payable until the end of January, which is the other $78,914 they agreed to pay for the third quarter at the end of October. So those are my questions. I have many more, but I don't want to take up too much time. So I'd appreciate some feedback on that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Lori. Julie Christie?
Yes, thank you. I had an update again, maybe. I appreciate having this on our agenda. I'm just concerned because this was brought up back at our budgeting, and there was one council member who, really, in my opinion, like a lot of public, to speak up, it's being ostracized over this, but Elise did bring this up way back when we were budgeting, and the concern at that time was having enough allocated funds. And it was concerned a while back. So now here we are. I just feel like this dialogue between commissions and councils has not been consistent. I don't need to justify myself, justice before it's proven, okay? And I'm really disappointed that we as a city, knowing that we were foreshadowing the situation, were not supportive of the sheriffs at the budget review with supervisors. They were literally begging for more funding when this taxes were being distributed. And if we want to support them in a way that we're not so financially responsible, I agree we need to involve supervisors, but we don't need to involve them at a later point. We need to be involved prior when you're doing these budgeting distribution. We do have a voice, we do have sway. And I'm concerned that COVID funds weren't reserved for this. I am concerned where they were spent. I feel like we are going to have to navigate away from grants and away from county funding. There's $17 million in debt, you guys. Like infrastructure, all that is really important for us to become self-sustaining. And so I just visualize if we can do anything to fundraise. I brought this up in the past. Vehicle festivals, highly successful event. I think if we could grassroots a lot of this, and I don't know if the sheriff's department is trying to prove a point, but ever since there's been dialogue going on, basically since our budget review here in the city, I have seen them more active than ever before. And I do want to say that. I don't know if it has anything to do with politics in town, but they are out there out when you're kind of seeing them. I'd like to commend them for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Linda Cooley?
Hi, I just wanted to remind council and maybe to remind the sheriff department as well, every time that this goes in the news, every time this is shared on Facebook that we have issues with officers of Blue Lake, we immediately have crime rise and we lose business. Last time every time we have a public discussion or it's on Facebook that we have issues with officers in our town, I know at the brewery specifically, we have a massive drop of people coming to town and businesses are paying these taxes to do this. So any way we can keep this out of the news, and I think communicating that to our sheriff department is critical, not only for our safety as parents, but for our businesses too, because it's a serious, serious issue. Nobody wants to come out when they hear that we have no officers. Whether that's accurate or not, I think working with them to control that narrative would be helpful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Kent? Kent, you're on.
Thank you for my opportunity to speak. I'm reading from an email dated Monday, 11/27/5:02 p.m. from Sheriff Hogg of me. The meeting went well with supervisors, which went well. So there already is communication in process. Both had a lot of questions about it. So anyway, it goes on and discuss. Your crew trip isn't going back before the supervisors unless you get a new contract. The one existing gave the sheriff every right to do exactly what he's doing. It was defined by, I believe, Virginia Bath, and I think the clerk of the board at that time. So look at the end of that. So going back to the supervisors, I guess, let me help you a little bit with negotiating. If I was a country of Taiwan, would I go around trying to fully do shit? Right. Well, you're going to run around like a little Betty Rooster acting like you're in control of this thing. Well, you have not seen a sheriff on Facebook. I don't do it. Did not go ahead and write an article in the Times Standard basically letting people know that we have problems with law enforcement out here as well, because that's a major thing to avoid. Just the fact you would go ahead and take it back tonight is major things to be avoided. Negotiations take a place for a strong hand, not a weak hand. And your city manager or staff should have an alternative at hand should the sheriff not be allowed to be something you want to know. Do we have a tentative contract or MOU with the city of Arcata? City of Fortuna, the city of Eureka? And with these municipalities provide the service. We need guys don't that'll be the health intelligence fiduciary point with the city manager to have them. Just to go forward and across in an aggressive manner, what you're doing is not the correct way to negotiate. You're negotiating right now for your new contract, which I believe, according to Sheriff, you could be negotiating. That was probably a month ago. I had that email from him. And that one would be the one that would be at your end of your fiscal year, but your fiscal year. So I highly recommend that you do not go forward with this kind of a movement. It would be have a negative impact on everybody involved. I just want people to be aware that we rather you won't be able to do the same job. You won't be able to file an insurance claim should there be an accident. They require a police report. You won't be able to file a claim when you're robbed with your insurance company. Report. There really aren't many services that you can negotiate away to where you need. And I really distressed that we even be putting this on the agenda. This is very bothersome. Instead of trying to negotiate, you say the sheriff won't talk, you only talking to Madrone and the sheriff, Supervisor Madrone. That's not true. Hopefully you guys will make the decision to cancel your contract, put you in a very bad position, and
Time's up, Ken.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any other public comments? Alicia, I'm sorry. And the gentleman next to you, Dennis. Thank you. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, my name's Alicia Russo. My family and I live in Blue Lake, and we also own 2 properties in the city. Our house resides in the county part. I am an active caller to the sheriff's department. I wrote a letter in September to the council about all the robberies we have had down at Mondo Way, which is off of Taylor. We have had over $100,000 stolen from us. The last year, we have had over 10 robberies. The sheriff always comes. They are active, working with me on solving that. They show up. I call them to request patrol checks if I see anything on our cameras, and they do come. So my request to the city council is that you do work with negotiating with the sheriffs before considering terminating our current contract. I see the asset that they are to this community. I would be scared if they are not here, because then I'm going down and dealing with it. And I have young children. I know our safety is a priority. I've had some really great discussions with Mandy about the police force and also the need for more patrolling. So I totally understand that. I get it. And I think that we do need more patrolling. I just hope that you guys can work towards solving that issue in town and preventing the crime that is happening. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Dennis?
Dennis Whitcomb. I like to think that the sheriff should have been just giving us a heads up that he was going to raise the price this much, since it's basically a doubling of the cost, rather than just say it's due next month, which is what he did. So I commend the city manager for getting into a negotiation process. And since the contract doesn't run out until July, I think that should give us plenty of time to work out some of those details. Now, as far as funding for it, apparently we get our funding from the state. And I don't know if an additional cost can come out like that or not, but I know some cities have an income tax to pay for this. So if that's a possible option for the city of Blue Lake to look into, that would give us consistency rather than just have to depend on grants or some other method. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
I would-
Public comment?
I have a couple answer to a couple of those questions if I could. Mr. Russo asked about the figures on this chart. The 315,000 that's factored in here is the price that the sheriff gave us for the increase, and that represents 23.8% of our general fund. Um, Currently, or last year, I should say, the price of $146,000 would actually be 12.6% of our general fund. Every year, the city gets funding in the form of a grant for law enforcement from the Supplemental Law Enforcement Services Grant. And this year, we're expecting 157,000 to come to us in that grant. We got a similar amount from that grant last year, which paid for all of our costs to the sheriff. And the year before that, we also that grant also paid the full cost of our sheriff's contract. So for the last 2 years, we've actually had a small surplus from that grant. So I'd just like people to be clear that that the city is up to this point, this for the last 2 years, the city's law enforcement contract has been paid in full by the grant funding. So at this point, the city would if we do go to that $315,000 cost, the city would have to essentially match the grant and come up with about $157,000 to $59,000 of our own monies out of our general fund. And we are projecting a $96,000 budget surplus this year. So assuming we would need another 160,000 for the sheriffs, we're actually only short maybe 100, maybe 65,000, something like that. So I mean, we're not so far underwater that we couldn't make this work in some way. And I'm just trying to. I put together this little chart to try to give people an idea, because I had the question in my own mind: what is reasonable to pay for law enforcement? What do other communities with different police departments and different levels of service have to pay for their law enforcement? And so in our discussion with the sheriff and amongst ourselves, the conversation has come up. We've talked about call volume. The sheriff told us, it's not about call volume. We're doing a per capita calculation. So I thought, okay, well, what does that look like? And we've talked about also percentage of general fund spent on law enforcement. So I went through and I looked at 5 different communities, 2 of which, Blue Lake and Trinidad, contract with the sheriff's department for law enforcement, and the other 3 have their own police departments. And so I figured this out with the increased cost of law enforcement at 315,000, and we're still, even at that point, we would still be paying the least of any of these 5 communities. And then if we didn't have the increase, we're paying quite a lot less at only 12.6% of our general fund. So I think that part of this problem that we're having is kind of an acceptance of reality. Nobody likes inflation. Nobody likes the bills we pay to our insurance companies. Nobody likes the coverage we get for healthcare. When you go to the doctor and your insurance company says, well, you gave me all this money, but I'm only going to pay this much of your doctor's bill, right? And a lot of this, it's kind of the same kind of an argument, same story. Things cost money. We don't always get what we want or what we think is fair or reasonable. But when you look at what is customary, what is common in terms of law enforcement costs, this little piece of paper tells a bit of a picture, and it might help us to understand what we're looking at and what we need to prepare for and get used to. I don't like the idea, but we might have to get used to the idea that it's going to cost us a lot more than we've ever paid before, because none of this is easy. I spoke to our representative from CIRA, our insurance company, yesterday, and he told me for the last 5 years, liability insurance has gone up 30% each year. And a great deal of that has to do with law enforcement, because there's huge amounts of lawsuits happening surrounding law enforcement. And so just the liability coverage alone is a huge piece of this increase, over the last few years. So anyway, there's so much involved in this. It's just it's hard to even roll it up into one conversation. You really can't. I mean, I've spent hours and hours and hours doing research and having conversations, um, and looking at different municipalities. I know that the sheriff, the CAO of the county, and Supervisors Madrone and Supervisor Wilson had a meeting yesterday, and they talked about the situations in Trinidad and Blue Lake. I don't know if there's any official outcome from that conversation. Maybe Mandy had some feedback from Supervisor Wilson or Madrone. I don't know, but there's a lot of people that are willing to be part of the conversation. And there's a tremendous amount of information and tremendous amount of complexity involved in this whole thing. So that's just something I hope that we can all gain a better understanding of going forward. And that's one of the reasons why I really would like to have a lot of these conversations in an open forum so everybody can understand.
Well,
Thank
maybe
you.
the meeting between the supervisors is what predicated this letter to us, which is just today. So maybe
Well, I
that was
think
something.
what predicated this letter to us was our agenda item.
Okay, well, but I'm saying that there was also things.
I have
Yes.
a question about this right here. So did you just add the extra $170,000 to our fund? Where'd you come up with that money?
Our general fund
No. I'm talking about
number,
our budget.
our budget, yeah.
Yeah. So you just added $170,000 to our budget, or is
I
that
took
what our
I
budget
took
is?
I took our general fund, which is 1 million, and I just had that number that I got right now. I took our general fund number, which does not include law enforcement, and I added the cost of law enforcement to it. So when you say that your law enforcement cost is a certain percentage of your general fund budget, you have to add your law enforcement to that before you do your.
Yeah, can't just come up with an extra $300,000 out of nowhere, because that actually turns your percentage rate into about 31%.
No,
Unless because you add stuff, because you can't just add stuff on top of our budget.
if you're doing
That's what
if you're doing math, you can add to make
where
your
money
figures
comes from.
comparable. So let me tell you, I didn't put the money in the budget. I just was doing the math problem. Okay.
Okay.
I'm taking, like, I took Trinidad's general fund and I added the cost of their police services to that. And then I did a calculation to get the percentage. Okay. Arcata already publishes their general fund budget with their law enforcement in it. So I didn't have to do anything there, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, in order to get a percentage of your general fund, you have to take your police budget and you put it in your general fund, and then you do the math and go backwards to get your percentage.
Okay, I think it's time for us to come to some sort of a decision here. And I was wondering what the council's pleasure was in this. It looks like there's an opportunity for negotiations now, so it looks like that's the step we need to take. We need to look at possibly assigning two council persons to be on the negotiating committee with staff, and hopefully the two members of the Board of Supervisors have indicated that they want to be a part of this. So if someone would like to make a motion to that effect, that would be fine, or I can do it. I don't like
Is there any support at all for this being a full council conversation?
No.
It can't. It can't.
Not
be
not for
after
not
this.
for the
a
initial
negotiation.
negotiation. Nope. After the initial negotiation.
Could I ask anybody to share the rationale for that?
Well, negotiations are usually done with the idea that it's not going to be, you're not going to show all your cards on the table. In other words, you've played poker before. You don't show your cards
Right.
to the whole group of people that are sitting around the table.
Well,
That's the
maybe-
only, that's the
So-
only thing I can give you as an example.
Negotiations with a contractor don't play into a city council or any government meeting. You can't have the rules and regulations that we have and have a general like the accountants here and everything trying to get our budget going. That's why
Right. Okay.
that's why the staff and whoever else is involved goes and gets a budget, and then we accept it.
And-
That's our job.
Well, and oftentimes negotiations, not oftentimes, sometimes negotiations can be as simple as having a mediator go back and forth between the two bargaining entities, in which case you can't have a full council, you can't have a full public meeting there because you have a mediator who's driving the conversation. And I'm not sure if that's going to be the case. Sometimes that's like a second step in the case.
Well, and I think it's very hard to have an active dialogue when you have to run it under a government meeting structure where you can't have fluid conversation. And if you have more than two council members, then you're restricted on how you conduct yourself. You have to have, it agendized, you have to have your protocol in place, and it's not a fluid discussion. And I think we're at a point in this process where we need to have those active conversations and dialogue so that we can truly look at costs and
Oh my
costs and impacts and
I'm sorry.
That's okay. I would like to move that we have two council members, and I would like to be one of them, and possibly our mayor meet with the supervisors, Madrone and Wilson, with the sheriff's office and the city manager.
I was gonna ask a question, is it possible to have a working session? Kind of everybody gets together and we have a learning working session before you go into negotiations.
Is that
I
even
don't think
allowed?
that's necessary.
I
Yeah.
imagine it is because people have meetings all the time where we have a working session, we discuss an item and then go into closed session to negotiate.
I don't think there's any desire to do that. But thank you for the idea. There's a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second?
Does your motion include the going forth with negotiations?
Yes.
Yeah. Going forth with
Tabling
Tabling number nine,
number 9.
moving forward with negotiation with the sheriff, including the supervisors, the city manager.
Okay.
The
Now,
mayor and
myself.
Elizabeth McKay.
Yes, please.
Mayor Jones, do you
Yes.
agree with tabling it, or should we just wait until he comes back with information? Because you've always said that tabling it and pushes it way out, makes
Yeah,
it-
I know, but I think in this case, tabling is
Okay.
is
Or
okay.
can we just put an update on the agenda for the December meeting?
If we have, yeah.
I mean, we'll have to. It's 30 days, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and we'll have to
but
see as soon as
we
we
have
can
to
get
look
to
at
the-
when our
yeah.
meeting's going to be in December.
Yeah.
Well, that too for certain.
I second the motion.
All right, so is the motion clear?
Yes.
All right, so the motion is to enter into negotiations with the sheriff, with our city manager, with the mayor of Blue Lake and Elizabeth McKay, with the Board of Supervisors members Madrone and Wilson, made by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Christopher Egger. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
It passes 4-1. All right, we are now on the second page.
No,
No,
we're not.
we're still on
Yep,
10. On
yep.
10.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay, discussion regarding council meeting frequency. So, Councilmember Scafani has requested a discussion regarding the number of council meetings per month and the option to add an additional meeting on the second Tuesday. Currently, the council meets once a month on the fourth Tuesday, but has reserved the option to have a second meeting on the second Tuesday if there are items that need to be addressed earlier in the month or if there are too many items to be addressed on a single agenda. The addition of a second meeting requires staff to allocate time and resources to prepare agendas and meeting minutes. With a small staff, it can be burdensome to take on a second monthly meeting. I also talked with Angela Shull about this, and with your schedule, it seems like it is difficult.
It would be difficult for certain, but I mean, if we already have it in place, right, that we have the second Tuesday set aside as needed.
Yeah, right.
So is the recommendation to do something different That's, I mean, I was just making sure I was reading that correctly.
Staff recommends that you utilize the second monthly meeting
Okay.
date on an as needed basis. So
Okay.
if you know that you have more items coming up, we've used this during budget times where we need to get two meetings in, or we want to have a working session or different items, throughout the month, or we know we have a very full schedule and we want to break it up. We definitely have the ability to use that second meeting, or it's kind
So
of like the first meeting.
is that already, like she was saying, is that already in place?
It
Oh,
is.
yeah, that's what I thought was already.
I thought it was in place. Okay. I was making sure that my thought was correct.
Well, the issue becomes, when do we decide and how do we decide that we need a second meeting? Do we decide after 2 hours of a regular meeting that we want to continue the meeting to the next date? Or what do we do? How do we do that?
Well, we've been doing it as needed when we've noticed that there's something that needs to be, there needs to be a second meeting. I mean,
But I also
staff
thought-
has told us that.
But I also thought that was the point of having you two help set the agenda to ensure that if the agenda, if the necessary items were so long that we would have another 4.5 hour meeting, we could.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think we really know ahead of time always how long things are going to go. Depends on public participation. It depends on a lot of different things, how long items are going to go. I personally don't feel like we're very effective after 2 or 3 hours. Like tonight, there's a financial report in here that, unless we want to be here for 3 or 4 hours again, we're not going to have time to go through that. So, I think finances are something that we really need to spend more time on, because I feel like there's an awful lot in there that we just kind of gloss over because we're just, we're so tired by the time we get there. We just want it to be over. So I don't know what the best thing might be. But again, we have the public here comes and participates, but they all start dropping off after a couple hours. And I think it's fair to say that, we'd have better participation. We could potentially get more done if we had 2 meetings a month, and everybody doesn't get so, so spent.
Well, as a person that was
unfair.
on the council years ago when we did have 2 meetings a month, we still had long meetings.
Yep.
You
That's
just
what I was
never-
just going to say.
Ah,
We would have 2 4-hour meetings a month
Yeah.
instead of one.
Yeah, it happened.
Well,
It
it
probably
probably
had
a lot more work though, too.
Honestly, with the last agenda item on there, I thought we did pretty well. How quick it went through there.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be a lot longer.
And we did have, item 7 that we didn't have to have tonight, so that was dropped off. So, you never know. Things do come up, and we'll try as being we'll have legit meetings that we will discuss, if things look like they're gonna be too much, we will add an extra meeting. It's there, it's a placeholder.
So you're saying at any time during that agenda review meeting, we can just say we're going to break this into 2, and we're going to just assume that second meeting will be on that other Tuesday?
Well, there wouldn't be an assumption, but I think we would have to bring that up to the
I mean, you'll have the opportunity at that meeting though
Yeah.
to look at your items and to be able to bring it up at the next meeting to say, it looks like we have a full agenda. We may need to have that second meeting the next month. Because it's
Yeah.
only, I mean, it's only 2 weeks separating the meetings. It's
The
not.
approval of the agenda is a perfect spot to be like, after reviewing the agenda, when we put this together, I feel that we should move these 3 items to a separate meeting.
Well, you
Makes
can't
sense.
do that the day of the meeting. Is that what you mean?
Why not?
Because people come to the meeting for agenda items.
You
that
would do
are
it at the
here.
agenda setting meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make
If
a
you were to say-
recommendation to council for future agenda items.
Yeah.
Okay, do we not want to change anything then concerning item 10? Sounds like not. Then we'll move on to item 11, the December meeting schedule. And looking at the calendar, our next regular meeting would be the day after Christmas, Boxing Day in Canada, the 26th. So, some boards don't even meet in December. I know the HWMA is not meeting in December. The only reason HCOG, Humboldt County Association of Governments, is meeting, they're having a short meeting, and then we're having a party basically to say goodbye to Debbie Edgar, who's been the administrative assistant there for I don't know, 30 years or more.
So you want to have a party? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I know. I'm
So, right. Okay. But I'm looking at December, and I feel very strongly about having our meetings on Tuesdays, even though I'm missing a Warriors Kings game tonight. But December,
suggesting that the 19th. Tuesday the
well,
19th.
or the 19th, I'm kind of looking at.
So Blue Lake Economic is on the 12th, but could we go
The 19th.
The 19th.
the 19th?
When the hell is Christmas?
Christmas is on a Monday, the 25th, and the 19th is
It's a possibility. 19th works.
how's the 19th for everyone?
Yeah, that works just fine.
Okay,
It's all right.
6:30 council. Okay, that was good. Good job, council. All right, let's move on.
Can we just, okay,
ma'am.
the
We need to
December
do that.
19th?
Oh, do we need to make a motion on
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay, let's
I
do that.
move that we move our December council meeting to December 19th at 6:30 p.m.
And motion made by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Angela Shell to move our December meeting to December 19th at 6:30. Is there any further discussion from council? Any question from public? Back to council for the vote. No, that's December 9th. That's a Saturday. That's what I was.
Put out
it's
there
stuck
on
in
my
head too,
square.
right? Okay, thank you, public.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we'll move that night. We are now on council liaison board and committee designation review. And there was at the October council meeting, some discussion, to discuss the current council assignments, scheduling conflicts and potential reassignments as necessary. I guess we're mostly concerned about
Me.
you, Chris. Yeah.
It
But-
just so happened my work schedule fell on every other week, and every other week was on a Monday, and the first of the month, and that's when I was gone. But I'm done out of town working at least until probably May or June next year.
Okay.
So,
Problem solved.
yeah,
Wow.
I'm back.
So, and I'm looking at this, and I've noticed that you have three who are primary, but absolutely no alternate. And I'm wondering if you were the alternate for Chris, would you be available? Because these seem to be things that you're interested anyway.
Yes, I could do that.
So what was it? The
Public
police
safety.
department?
It's
Public safety.
gaming,
Public safety.
gaming,
And I've actually
oh,
contacted
public safety and fire department.
yeah,
So
public
instead of
safety.
Angela?
For public
Because
safety.
Angela has has a lot of things.
I've contacted the fire department, and I've contacted
And you're the
Jason.
okay,
and,
sorry. Mm-hmm.
they don't really have meetings like that.
Who wants them? Well, it's not to get that.
At the casino.
No, they don't. I know.
I contacted.
Well, that
actually,
doesn't.
it's person, and he goes, yeah, I'll let you know if there's anything. Same with fire department. I go in there, I talk to them. They're like, do I need to come to a meeting to be a part of this? And they're like, no. And I was talking to Jason. I've talked to what's his name, who was just here today, and the chief, and
Yeah.
Daniel Flores.
Daniel Flores, who wants to be part of the safety commission.
Yeah.
Like, coming up with the Blue Lake Fire Department because I have
Well, I went to every meeting. And I was on the council.
District board meeting and the volunteer
Okay,
board.
got what I'm
Yeah, so you're supposed to be
District.
going to district board.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Okay. What night
Does
is
that happen in
That's on
May?
Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is that a problem?
No, I could do that.
Okay. All right. So
No, it's first
Third.
Monday versus third Monday.
Yeah.
Wow.
the only change I'm seeing is we're moving Angela from being
Second.
the alternate to the public safety committee to Elise being the alternate to public safety. Is that the change we're gonna
And
make?
then I am not the alternate for the Blue Lake Fire Department.
Wait a minute now.
If
Fire
if
department.
Elise would be willing to do that,
Do you want to be alternate to the fire department?
because I'm
If
alternate.
not, I can do
I'm
it.
the alternate on three things already, and primary on 3 as well.
Okay. Okay.
So you're still there?
All right, so Angela, you're the alternate for the fire department now, and Elizabeth is not. Okay. Because don't we have,
I could be the alternate for the Indian Gaming and Rancheria,
Okay.
if you want to give that up.
oh, I mean,
Yeah, I got it.
Natalie. Well, no, I'm not the, yeah, I'm the alternate. That's right. Chris, you're the primary. Okay, so.
Alright. So you know, so you let me.
Yeah.
But I'm all good for
I
fire.
will let
Yeah.
Angela know.
So now on Indian Gaming, instead of being the alternate, Elise. Okay.
Unless you want me to be primary and you want me to be.
No,
No,
I didn't do that often. Yeah. I went to one in, I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
And it wasn't
Yeah,
really much of a
gonna
meeting. It
be
was Arla, me, and
Angela.
another woman all sitting around a table.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Because
what's going on.
I've called him. I actually went to his office and be like, "Do you guys have meetings?" He's like, "No, not really."
There's
So-
rarely ever any funds
Yeah.
that come through that anymore. That
Yeah.
hasn't
So
happened
Blue
for
Lake Fire.
Yeah.
That was, yeah, that law
Oh, you want-
actually
not
changed
me.
and there's no, the
Blue Lake
Indian
Fire.
Gaming,
Okay, and I'm
money
I
issue
have
is
1,
no
2,
longer.
3 that I'm
Right.
alternate and
Okay,
So
are
you're
those
not
the only
changing that?
changes? I mean, I haven't heard.
The Indian gaming one hasn't changed.
Yeah, it
Yes,
is.
it did.
It is. I'm not the alternate. Elise is now. So cross me off and put Elise.
So I'm
Oh.
primary on 3 and alternate on 2.
Mhm.
And the water task force, as far as I've been able to ascertain,
Put it on primary.
that's not meeting currently.
It's only as needed.
Oh, the
And it was
task-
mostly a drought thing, so I guess it's not really happening right now.
Okay, I think there's only 3 changes and now does this have to go through the Maddie Act?
What's the other change?
Amanda?
No, these
Okay.
are your liaisons. These aren't.
Okay.
Which two do you have?
I have that I'm the alternate for Indian Gaming and Public Safety.
I'm alternate for the fire department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
It's
Okay.
just those 3 changes. Okay, very good and very
Do
efficient.
we need to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the city council assignments with the 3 amendments as discussed.
A second?
Motion made by Angela Shaw, seconded by Elise Stefani to change Adeline from the alternate of Indian Gaming to Elise being the alternate. Elise being the alternate to the Public Safety Commission from Angela, and Angela being the alternate to the the Blue Lake Fire Department from Elizabeth. Any further discussion? Public? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor?
Look, Ken's got his hand up.
Oh.
I don't know if it's for this one or for the.
I don't know how long it's been.
Yeah, I don't know if it's this one or not.
Did you want to talk about the city council assignments? Kent? Okay, I don't think so. Put your hand down. Yes, did you want to talk about the city council assignments, Kent? What?
You're not having your primary notify the alternate directly and for notify the either city clerk or city manager who's also to notify the alternate. The only meeting for the alternate is not there, the primary is not there, and there could be a discussion, but I just need to make sure that correct communication happens through cooking matters, like an email, and phone calls, that you're have a better chance of your representative.
Thank you, Kent. All right, we're moving on to council correspondence, item 13.
Sorry, before you go, could we do we have a way for city staff to notify the alternates if they get it they get a notification just in case
Should
they're not able to
Oh,
communicate
usually
with
Should
each
have
other.
their email.
Yeah, and usually the primaries can tell the
I'm just thinking that
alternates too.
sometimes it might be the day that it happens and maybe some sick, they can't get in touch with the alternate or whatever. And staff can help that.
Yeah, we all should.
Okay.
Yeah, that
I mean,
would be
we can,
good.
you can notify us and we can make contacts. We have phone numbers, emails, but it would be nice if the primary and the alternate could communicate outside of staff as well. But we're happy to help.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we're on council correspondence, and we did have an email correspondence from Kent Zalatsky. So I'm going to read it. First, he contacted Annalee. He says, Annalee, are these numbers accurate? If not, what are they? With all of Mandy's whining, I bet we may have to pay more next contract. Mandy said at the economic development meeting that she is always getting calls from people interested in doing business in Blue Lake. How come I never am referred to any of them to try to bring their business to Blue Lake? I do not hear that any of the downtown vacant commercial space owners get referrals. These are all questions. That's why my voice is going up. You get the original calls when they come in. Are there really that many? Okay, then there's a chart, which I can't really read
No,
the chart very well.
the chart is the same one that was provided to us
Oh,
for our
okay.
budget discussion, for our
Okay.
sheriff's discussion.
Then the next page, we have Annalee. He's again contacting our
And
city
this
clerk.
is what email is this other one here? Jade River at Suddenlink.
That's Elise. That's Elise's code name.
That's your
name.
email?
Yes,
What?
it is. Could you
Where's
please not say it out loud in a public meeting, though?
The private
meeting.
email?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, it is.
Well, then it's put to a public meeting.
In the correspondence, which isn't actually in
I
front of
just,
everybody.
okay.
Go public.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. I was just trying to figure out what's going on here.
All right. So then Kent notifies Annalee again. I will try to call you today to try to get some answers to the below questions. Add to the list, why was the update on our water tanks not put on for the Blue Lake City Council meeting tonight? The city municipal code gives the public the right to put things on the agenda. Just because city staff does not want to be transparent is no reason to violate the city municipal code. This is not the first time this has not happened, as you are aware. If my math is correct, should the city take current contract? Wait a minute. Should the city take
The recommended.
the recommended action, sorry, of terminating the sheriff contract and renegotiating, it likely would cost the city $13,125 for the remaining 5 months of the current fiscal year, and would possibly not allow the city to get any extensions under the current contract. Please include this and the email below as communication to the city council at tonight's city council and have it read into the record. Also include a copy of the Facebook below. Next email.
The Facebook below is the one before.
Maybe.
This page?
Annalee, are these numbers accurate? If not,
Okay.
oh, okay, that's already been read. Okay. Then there's the chart again.
Same chart.
And then there's further message here. So this is to Ryan, our city attorney. Ryan, your email response is that you are gone for Thanksgiving. Is it still Thanksgiving? I was informed by Blue Lake city staff that the city of Blue Lake did not put the request for an update on the city of Blue Lake water and tank situation. I was told that it was because you, as the city of Blue Lake legal counsel, would be addressing this at the next city council in December. There are 2 topics that need to be addressed. 1, the status of the grant request. It is my understanding is that a much larger footprint for the tanks would be required because of 100 feet of defense space. I recommend that you educate yourself by contacting the potential granting agency and transparently makes all information available to the public. My PRA requests have shown no communication since the notice to the city that it would be required to have the defensible space. If this is true, the citizens deserve to know. 2. The status of the lease on Aaron McClure land. Is it my understanding that Aaron to date has only been handed a 13-year-old offer that was made to her predecessors in title? Was this offer for dollars zero every 6 months and a cap on the water? Less water than the prior agreement. It is important for you as legal counsel to understand the concerns addressed in point 1 above. The potential of needing more land is a must to protect the crucial water infrastructure. My understanding is that Erin McClure, sounding like a broken record, requests that she only get a fair lease agreement based upon an appraisal of the current lease value. The public does not understand why this city would jeopardize the citizens' health, safety, and welfare. Please be prepared to present the necessary appraisal or the timeline to complete said appraisal. My understanding is that the city manager has sent her to you, and yet it appears that you may need to educate yourself regarding the grant status. Next email. This is also to our attorney. I hope you have luck. Yeah.
Yes.
And he asked that this be read into during correspondence. I hope you will have luck convincing the Blue Lake City Council members tonight to not endanger the public health, safety, and welfare and incurring additional cost. Mandy Mager likes to use the reason of her fiduciary duty for other things. Hopefully, that will apply to item number 9 on tonight's agenda. Also, please instruct them on their obligation to follow the city municipal code regarding the public's rights to put things on the Blue Lake City Council agenda. Then, Mr. Swatsy, thank you for your email. We will ensure it is read into the record at tonight's. Right. Oh, that's it. All righty. Any other correspondence? No. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. Warrants and disbursements, financial statements, and account report. Is there anyone who would like to pull anything from the consent agenda? Yes, please. For both of them. Okay, warrants and disbursements.
So I just marked a few items. I'll just like a little clarity on some things. So on the first page, we have Curtin Construction on October 10th for $4,809.70.
Could you give us the check number?
It is 11300.
Oh, okay. Kernan Construction, 11300, $4,809.70.
Yeah, so this is this will either be a water repair or a sewer line repair. Or both, depending on how the break was.
Do we contract with them for all kinds of
We have
repair projects?
at least 3 contractors on call that we use, and these are emergency repairs, so we call whoever can get there first. We use Walland, we use GRS, we use Kernan, we've used REO for different projects, not normally water and wastewater, but we have usually those 3 that can come out and make those repairs.
They did our headgate repairs too, right?
Mercer Fraser is going to be doing that project.
Okay, and then further down the page, 11317, SHN for $8,539 for a few different invoices. Can you say what those are for?
What's that? A lot of different.
I can't tell you specifically, but I can tell you that we have a number of projects that SHN is working on. So they're currently working on the truck route project. They're working on our stormwater project. They're working on our headworks project. Their work creek restoration project.
And do they invoice for each project?
Yes, absolutely.
Separately? So the truck route below that for 8,600. Anyway, well, do you have any sort of report for SHN services that breaks stuff out to projects?
All of our projects have the costs broken out.
And is that something that that I could get a copy of?
Absolutely.
Okay. Could you make a note and I'll bug you about that another time? Just, or do you want me to? Thank you.
Okay.
And then on the next page, we have, so there's one for wall and construction. That's probably another water repair. And the same for Kernan for 12,000. Would that be another water repair? Are these all under street kind of things?
Yes, these are all projects that we aren't capable of doing. We're not licensed or certified to do confined spaces, so we're only allowed to dig so far before we have to go with a contractor. And we don't
Okay.
have the equipment either. A break on that costs that much money usually requires a vac truck and paving and all kinds of additional work. So that's beyond our scope.
So, where am I? 11347, U.S. Bank Corporation Payment Systems.
That is our credit card payments.
Okay. And how come we're paying ourselves for sewer and water?
We pay ourselves for, oh my gosh. I wish Melissa was here. It's part of our accounting of our deposit paybacks. Where how does that work, Annalie?
The refunds for the deposits.
Yeah.
When our water account is closed, we have to refund them their money. I'm not too familiar with the process, but my understanding is it comes out of the city's funds because we're holding a deposit in the current account.
Okay.
So when we refund them, we write out this check.
Okay.
So we have to
I'm not
write it back to
super familiar with the
ourselves.
process, but we write it to ourselves. Reimburse our customers.
Okay. Thanks. Cal Plumbing and Fire, 2,300.
11,353.
At the next check.
11,353 Cal Plumbing and Fire Supplies.
Sounds like fire suppression work or inspection work.
I'm not exactly sure which project that is.
Did we put in fire suppression stuff in Crash Hall?
Well, it's a plumbing company too. It's not just fire suppression.
Oh, okay.
Well, I guess you just have to find
So I
invoice number
can
2246.
pull the invoice and get you the detail.
And then Schwigert Electric.
Schweigert, yeah.
Schweigert Electric is the one who's doing the electrical upgrades in Crash Hall.
It's local.
Okay. And there's just one more on the next page. 11382 to the Rancheria for 2750.
That is for our transit contract.
Transit. Okay, thank you.
That's probably our last payment there.
It isn't. Yeah.
They're shut down, right?
Yeah, they're already
Yeah.
shut down.
Okay, any other questions about the disbursements? Would we like to pass a motion to accept
We have
the
hands.
Lori Ponte, did you have a public comment about the disbursements?
No, it's just a question. I know there was a question what the FRMS for, and I don't know that was asked. The audio's not very good tonight, but
Last page of them. I saw it too.
It's the city's health insurance.
it's health insurance.
Yes.
Oh, it's not with your podcast.
Thank you. Is that Kent? Kent, you had a question or comment about the disbursements? No. Oh, all
I
right.
think you have to
Your hand's
remove
still up.
your hand. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we accept the
Warrants and disbursements.
the warrants and disbursements with the questions answered.
I second.
Motion made by Elizabeth Lakay, seconded by Elise Scafani to um, approve of the warrants and disbursements. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes. Okay, we're on financial statements.
This is a big report.
Yes, lots of numbers. Which one were you interested in?
Oh, golly.
And I don't think they're, oh yeah, they're numbered. So go by page number. What question did you ask?
Okay. I have a question about shoot, the parks fund.
Parks and Recreation on page 2.
Or one.
13. Fund 13.
Okay.
Which is page 9. So,
Page 13? No, I think it's page 9.
Page
Oh.
9.
Uh-huh.
Statement of revenue expenditures, state park per capita program fund. Is that the one you want? Okay.
So this grant was awarded 2 or 3 years ago. Is that right?
It was awarded, but it wasn't funded.
Right. So so work's been ongoing on this for quite a while, and so I'm curious. My understanding of this grant is that these funds need to be spent on parks type programs in as capital improvements, correct?
You can do repairs and maintenance. It has to be on existing facilities or building new facilities.
Okay.
But you can use it repairs and maintenance to get it to a point that it's usable in a manner that exceeds the manner in which it had been used previously. So basically, because not every most of what we're doing though all ends up being part of a capital improvement. So when you put it in totality, whenever you do work on the building, that all gets at the end, it usually gets capitalized.
Okay. So so currently, how much money is left to spend out of this? It looks like 19,481. Is that correct?
So yeah, and we're waiting for a drawdown right now. So we have an outstanding reimbursement.
And so you don't have to use the entire grant to get reimbursed?
No.
And you
But we
haven't-
have to complete work under each grant segment.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. What other questions did you have?
The American Rescue Plan, the previous page 8. So the capital expenditures that have come out of this year to date, 52,989. Can you say what those were spent on?
So those are the repairs and upgrades to Prash Hall that council approved in the budget. So we've done a lot of improvements. We did the commercial kitchen, we did all the lighting, we did extra improvements to our electrical system. We've done improvements to concessions. We've improved our capacity to have a novelty shop within the parks program. I believe we bought new skates. There's been a lot of items that have been spent to improve the diversification of Prash Hall.
Okay. And I know I've asked this question before, but can we get a report that's going to show us all the different things that these grants are funding? I've seen the spreadsheet that Vicky can generate.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. There's a lot of unanswered questions in that form, and so I
What
know.
format would you like it to take?
Well, I'd like it to be something that, it's just a basic chart that says, that shows all the different things that were paid for out of a particular grant. I mean, and the report I'm talking about is like there's 400 lines and it breaks down hourly wages
Mhm.
into, 300 of those lines. So it's not a really user friendly format. So um, you know, it would be really beneficial, I think, not just for the council, but for the public who's interested in the things that are being done with these funds, if we could come up with a report that shows very easily and clearly where the money's going.
I mean, I think we report on this quite frequently, the projects that we've done. Do you want
You
them
do.
broken out by, I mean, I'm just not really sure how far you want this broken out.
I think the funds should be. I think the funds should show exactly where they're going. I think out of this $56,000, if I noticed on that report, there's 3 line items: Rose Brand Wipers, Music City Acoustics, and Star Wholesale Products, for a total of $33,044.
That's the sound baffling.
And I imagine that there was that doesn't include labor, but that was materials. So, I'm interested to see what the total cost of that is. I'd like to see those kinds of things put in one form where, a person doesn't have to be an accountant to understand and do all the math to figure out what stuff is.
Well, that's your 400 line item. That was,
I mean, do you want me to
that was-
consolidate that per project with the
there's-
cost? I mean, I'm not
that's
really
how
sure
it
what
would be broken
I
down.
mean, we're
Well,
giving
yeah.
you all of the costs associated.
I mean,
with
if
the
you
project.
have a project item such like the sound improvements to Prash Hall,
But we don't break our
or whatever.
expenditures out in that way necessarily. I mean, I can break out. Well, we can work on something and see and send it to you and see if it answers your questions.
Okay.
Okay. What else did you have? Or was that all?
Oh, that might be the majority of it. I just like, I mean, in general, I feel like it's my responsibility as a council member to understand how we spend money and where we spend money. And if I spend a bunch of time doing this and I still can't identify um, those items, then I need more information, and I don't want to keep, badgering Vicky to give me stuff that I can't understand, or that I need to, get her on the phone for another 45 minutes so that she can give me all the codes and tell me all these different things so that I can go through and try to interpret
Well,
a
I think
spreadsheet.
part of it is you're looking for like granular details versus like a comprehensive accounting of the improvements in totality. I mean, we presented you guys a budget and for the dollars to make the improvements, and we identified the types of improvements we were going to be making. N- and without the expectation that we were going to have to present every dollar. I mean, we have it all there, but we don't break out each dollar associate. I mean, it's a large project, so it's difficult for me to say this dollar went to this part of the electrical, but this part of the electrical went to the kitchen. And I mean,
Well,
that
it seems to
granular
me,
detail seems
yeah, I understand what you're
like
saying, but it seems to me that in order to make good decisions about how to spend the money and whether or not it's a good investment to put money in certain areas, you need to know what's going where. And I think that the council and the public wants to know that as well, especially if we're talking about budget and saying we can't afford this or we can't afford that. People want to know what our priorities are. I want to know what our priorities are. I can't get a clear view of
General
what our
budget.
priorities are.
That's where we're coming from. This is a grant. It has to be spent on certain things. And when it comes to like electricity work or construction work, you're going to hire an electrician to come in and assess the situation and make the repairs needed. He's not going to put every little wire nut on his bill. He's going
Chris,
to give
I'm
you
not
the
asking
best
for
bill.
wire nuts.
But you're asking what exactly what she's saying is there's $3,000 from the electrician. You want to know exactly where all that
I
$3,000.
don't know which project it went to.
Well, it's on
I'm
the
not
electrician.
asking about wire nuts. I'm asking about which project it went to. Did it go to the lighting and sound upgrades? Did it go to the commercial kitchen?
It could have went to
It's all
all three of them.
connected.
It could have, but I think that when we're doing projects, when we're doing a project, I mean, I'm guessing the installation of this $33,000 worth of equipment had to cost another 10 grand to get it in there. So I'm wondering, at what point do we decide that we want to spend $43,000 to upgrade sound and lighting? And that's a significant investment. So I'm asking myself, if I was going to spend $43,000 on my house or my farm, I want to know, I need to rationalize that. I need to understand what's the, you know, what sort of payback I'm going to get for that investment. And so that's kind of, that's part of what I'm looking at. You know, I didn't have anything to do with building our budget. I don't understand the rationale that went into building our budget. Um, so I'm kind of going backwards. I'm working backwards. I'm looking at things, expenditures that we're making, and I want to see where the money's going, and then I can understand some of the rationale. Um, and I think that our citizens, as well as our council, deserve that kind of understanding if they ask for it. So I've heard from a number of people that have asked for this kind of information. And I think they're as frustrated as I am because those reports are really hard to interpret.
And does the grant funding go into our general funds?
No, so the grant fund, you guys approve the grants through the budgetary process. We identify the main categories of expenditures, and then it's up to staff to implement those installations or improvements.
So we're not
And
spending any of our money on this stuff. It's
no.
all grants.
And I'm happy
Well,
to provide you categories. It's kind of like I can give you so much information, or I can give you a more of a consolidated view, but it's very difficult to do something in between, I guess is what I'm saying, because these types of improvements are, improvements to the building are associated with the building overall, but the electrical affects the lighting, it affects the kitchen, it affects operations, so
sure.
it's,
What kind of quarterly reporting do you have to do for the grants?
so we could, that's something else we can, I don't think that's what Councilmember Scavani is looking for. We've
I was
been
wondering, like, with the narrative, like, do you have to do a narrative as well as an expenditure
Mhm.
report? So does your narrative say things like X amount of dollars on electricity, X amount of dollars on?
Not necessarily. We have categories of expenditures for
Okay.
this grant. So we have an approval to spend so much money on the baseball fields. We had approval to spend
Mhm.
so much money on the horse arena, tennis court area. We had so much money to spend on the crash hall improvements. So I mean, I'll work with you, Councilmember Scapani, to see if we can figure out a way to present this information that's more palatable.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And Chris, I just wanted to share with you that one of these funds that I'm talking about is Fund 12, the American Rescue Plan, and that grant does not stipulate that it has to go to capital improvements or it has to go to the parks. So this money could have gone anywhere.
And you budgeted for that 52,000 during your budget process.
I think we
And
budgeted for 79,000 to go to capital improvements.
we have a remainder that hasn't been fully budgeted. Okay, do we have a motion then to accept our financial statements and accountant report?
So moved.
Seconded. So something or other.
All right, motion by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Angela Shull to approve the financial statements and accountant report. Any further discussion from council? Anything from public? Back to council.
Got a hand up there.
Oh,
Lori, yeah, Lori's
yes.
got something.
Lori, did you want to make a remark about the financial statements and accounting report? Or is her hand still up?
Now.
There you are.
Yeah, there you are. Okay. So I appreciated Chris's question about the general fund. I think that if there's certain money that's grant funded for a certain project, and there's a deficit for finishing those projects, is money coming from the general fund? I may have not understood the question, but that's my question, is does the general fund supplement deficits in the budget for completing projects? Where does that come from? Because I understand that not all of the projects are completely funded by grants. So I think that would be helpful to know if there's general fund money going to complete projects or adding projects as they're coming along, to get them to the next level. And I don't know if that's what Chris meant when we asked that question, but it seemed like there was sort of implied. So I was just kind of hoping that the council knows that degree of the general fund spending for projects that are coming about. I guess primarily with Park and Rec, that seems to be where the most energy is going, and things are getting done. So it's great, but I was just kind of thinking that nuts and bolts of budgets and spending are a bit fuzzy, to probably everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, Jennifer and then Julie.
Can you come up to the podium so people can hear you?
Can people hear them?
I think that I've dealt with grants and they're a funny thing because every grant has different stipulations and so forth, and it can get really complicated, like you said. But in the words of Kent Zawadzki, I think that if you're that interested in it, you should educate yourself on how to deal with that form you don't understand, rather than taking up Mandy's time. She has a full-time job, and it seems like that's what you're interested in finding out, and it's right there. You just have to seek it out, rather than asking someone else to be the middleman to answer your question. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jennifer. But
Thank
I've
you for
spent
your
hours and
comment.
hours and hours trying to understand this stuff, and I'm not asking. Well,
Okay.
thank you.
You,
Let me train it. No, it's been I'm just one off the battle of and I did kind of reflect at that time, but suggested that with these individual grants, if we do find a way that can make them more successful with how they've all been shared, their allotments and the kind of expiration on them. And that was a very flexible, and I think it's fun. So they could back and I do believe that we are not actually very kept up pace on the river branch point. We know that what this is in the verbiage. So again, I do appreciate just having this moment to talk back on what I.
thank you for your comment. Any other public comment? Back to council for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Reports of council and staff. I'm going to go around and see if anyone has reports. I do. So let's start.
Yeah, I went to my first public safety meeting and it was very enjoyable. We got some good people on that crew. They talked about our sheriff situation, made an ad hoc committee, as we mentioned earlier, and you guys will be getting involved with them, the people who volunteered. Phil and Stephanie, who both I enjoy their company, they're good people. They're talking about traffic slowing for our community, mainly I and H Street, which are two unhindered streets, have heavy traffic flow. So there's a lot of things being talked about there, including but not limited to bump outs, parking, and roundabouts, slowing stuff. They broke ground on the dirt track. If you guys have been down there, kids are already enjoying it. Actually, a good friend of mine's helping build that. It's looking good out there. They were talking about the Bottawat community and finalizing the creek restoration program that's going on down there. And that's about it. It was a good meeting.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Chris. No other meetings? Okay, move on to Elise.
So I've had a Redwood Coast Energy Authority board meeting. And we talked about stuff that just makes your eyes cross. Mostly very, very complicated things about energy contracts and different districts that stipulate the cost of energy. You would never guess that turning your lights on gets that complicated, but it does. And so anyway, things are rolling along there. We also took a tour of Humboldt sawmills. We went through the sawmill as well as the power plant, and that was pretty fun and educational.
Where's that sawmill?
In Scotia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Redwood Coast Energy Authority buys all of the surplus energy from Redwood Sawmill Company from their power plant. They use the energy they generate there to run the power plant, and then they sell the rest to the RCEA, and it helps to keep our lights on. And their power plant is of an age that is similar to the power plant here in Blue Lake, and it's still running strong down there. And anyway,
Biomass plants.
correct.
Yeah.
Biomass plant. And they take all the waste. They take all the waste from the sawmill. They no longer truck it anywhere. They built this conveyor system. It's actually a covered conveyor system, so it doesn't get wet and the dust doesn't blow around. And it runs from the sawmill to the power plant, where they used to have to fill trucks and truck it from one point to the other. Now it runs on conveyors.
What were the air like?
Pretty cool.
3 miles of belting.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Yeah. My friend who owns Manila and Cheryl put the belts together for that, and it was over 3 miles worth of belting.
Yeah,
Insane
it's
belts.
pretty amazing. Yeah, the day we were there, the air quality was very good. So
Well, the field trip. Nice. Okay. Any other meetings? No.
no,
Okay.
the Parks and Rec meeting got canceled.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay. I attended a Waste Management Authority meeting on November 9th. And Trinidad would like to be a part now of HWMA. The cities that are involved are Arcata, Blue Lake, Eureka, Ferndale, the county, and Riodale. Fortuna is not part of the HWMA. Well, now Trinidad wants to be part. So their council voted unanimously to become a part of the HWMA. So they will probably be on the board with us. And then we went into closed session to discuss Eric Keller Heckman, the CEO, who's doing a very good job. And he was, we talked about that. And then I announced that we were having a dump day in Blue Lake on the whatever day that was.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, the dump day, the 18th.
Saturdays.
Yeah, which I understand went very well.
That's Justin.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that. And then on November 16th, I attended an HCOG meeting, and that evening, the city of Blue Lake was awarded $46,683 for the LTF claim. And
What's
I
that
have,
mean?
yeah, I know. I knew you were going to ask me that. And I have to go back now and find out. I have all the information on these, by the way. So, yeah, let me find out what LTF stands for. Unless
Local
Mandy remembers.
Transportation Fund.
Ah, very good. Thank you. Yeah, so we were awarded some money so we can get some work done with that.
So is
And
that for public transportation?
Yeah.
Public transportation and streets.
yeah, it's gonna be on
Oh,
our
and
streets.
streets. So
roads.
it's not a bus.
No. That's a different thing.
That's a different ballgame.
Right.
Kind of
Which we did have a public hearing on the unmet transit.
Street maintenance.
We did have a meeting on the unmet transit needs. And then what's the other thing? Oh, and we had a road charge presentation on, since there's so many electric cars, they're trying to figure out how to capture taxes, because a lot of these new cars now aren't paying the gas tax. So there's a whole issue about how to get a road charge out of. Good meeting. I have those items there. Okay, next person.
I attended the Blue Lake Chamber of Commerce meeting on the 13th. Rick, the treasurer, noted that there's $12,000 in assets. Well, the first thing that came up was beyond that. The first thing that came up was the conversation about potentially recording the chamber meetings. The chamber decided to not record those meetings. Their reasons were that because they're not affiliated with the city itself, they are a separate entity. They looked at other chambers of commerce. No one else records theirs. And the chamber really has a lot of autonomy from the city. And there's no public elections. So they really felt like it was not, bless you, not a necessary thing to do. The second thing that happened was that there was the nomination and election of new officers. And she's not there anymore. But so Marvin finally has had the good fortune to finally retire as chamber president.
Oh, good.
Yes. Marvin's amazing. And there was a conversation about how far the chamber has come in the last 8 years. But it's no secret he was ready to retire a few years ago, but just kept at it. So Emily, who is Parks and Rec director, has offered to take over as the president beginning in December. And so Emily Wood, sorry, and Muriel, who is the secretary, has also resigned, and so there was another member there who had offered to take over as secretary. So that's good news. Rick will stay on as the treasurer. They are searching for a new VP, however. So if anyone is interested in taking that on, by all means, reach out to Emily. One of the considerations, though, with the chamber is that when the agendas get sent out, they get sent out to not just the chamber members, but also to the businesses in the community. And there were no businesses at the meeting. So that generated a really robust conversation about does the city even know what the chamber does? What is the chamber's mission? What is the chamber's vision? And there was a lot of gaping holes, and so that became kind of a really great time where Emily will be able to come in and work with community members, work with businesses, and really start to try to create that idea of what the council or what the chamber's mission and vision statement is. Really, how do you get the message out? And then that led to a conversation about, well, gosh, we're reaching out to all these brick and mortar businesses. We do have a significant number of brick and mortar businesses, but more importantly, we have businesses that are not brick and mortar. All of the contractors that we have in town, all of the folks who sell their goods on Etsy or other online services. And so we have this really robust group of people that we're not tapping into. And by we, this is the chamber. And so then it became, then that led to that conversation of, well, we need to get these folks involved in the conversation about what the chamber's vision and mission are and how do we brand Blue Lake based upon that. So it was really, there was a lot of really great energy. There was a lot of really great ideas. One of the things that Emily is hoping to do fairly quickly is to really start with a roundtable discussion with businesses and try to do it at a time when people are available. But really, what does it, how can they get involved? Because it's, a very simple $40 for a business, $25 for a family. But just because you're a chamber member, are you an active member? Are you supporting the community? Are you part of the community? So it was a really, really good meeting. And like I said, I think Emily's got some really great ideas. The website and the newsletter are going to also be shifted over to Emily's purview. And then let's see. The last thing was that the chamber did approve a $500 gift donation to Del Arte as part of their work to try to regenerate funds. Really, really solid meeting. It was really exciting, actually. And then last night was REDEC, and we talked a lot about housing at REDEC. Elizabeth Connor, who is it called Housing Humboldt or Humboldt for Housing, whatever that organization is, she has been the executive director for that. And what she came to talk to REDEC about was this building momentum for regional housing trust funds, and how municipalities and how community services districts can go in and start a fund for building small houses or rehabbing houses, and what that looks like on a regional level. And in the conference that Elizabeth went to, there was conversations about having like city housing trust funds versus regional trust funds. Perhaps for LA, a city trust fund would work better, but up here, because we're all so small, there was a conversation about a regional housing trust fund, what that looks like, how it supports community development, how it supports affordable housing. And there was no action taken. It was just a discussion and an information session. The last thing that was brought up that was housing related is that the County of Humboldt actually has a significant amount of funds right now to provide loans. Their owner-occupied housing rehab assistance, which is fantastic, except that it's only viable for people who live outside of city limits, so they're county residents only. They don't live within a municipality, right? So those of us who own homes in town, that's not going to work for us. But if you have a house or whatnot out of town, then that's great. So in essence, right. So and it's for the entire county. So I mean, this includes like one half of the boulevard, right? But so in essence, what the rehab housing assistance does is you submit your proposal on what work you need to have done on your house to rehab it to a livable situation. Or the loans range anywhere from $2,500 to $75,000. And here's the kicker: they're a 30-year, 3% amortized, can't say that word, loan that you don't make any payments on as long as you live in the dwelling. So you live in the dwelling, you go to sell your home, whatever you sell off the home, then you pay back or whatever. Wow. So anyway, it's very underutilized. So I'm just sending it out there to the ether world. If you live in the county, look it up. The county itself. This meeting came from the Redwood Region Economic Development Corporation, REDEC. And so REDEC is an organization that provides loans for businesses, for startups. So for instance, in public knowledge, I'm not sharing anything outside of context, but they just recently awarded like a $1 million loan to Dick Taylor Chocolates for their new building and whatnot. They provided loans to cities for improvement projects. And so, they back in the day provided loans to Fire and Light to get their business up and running. So and they provide loans oftentimes when you have a business or an organization that might struggle getting a conventional loan through a bank. Maybe you don't have enough financials to suit the bank's needs. Maybe you don't have, enough longevity, blah, 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 blah. And so you can apply for loans through REDEC.
Yeah, the money started out when a lot of timberland was put into national park, and to offset the amount of money that the county was losing from that, we got this money into REDEC in this revolving loan program. So it's
Sorry,
been great.
that was a long report.
That's okay. I'll make
I
mine short.
apologize.
I went to the
Okay.
Blue Lake Economic Development,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we talked about our new empty space in downtown. That's now added to a lot of empty spaces in downtown. So that
Where Abundant
conversation
Life
involved.
is?
Pardon?
Where Abundant
Yeah,
first was?
Abundance
Okay.
is gone now, and
old
and
grocery store?
they did
Yeah.
leave it really clean.
Yeah, they did.
They spent a long time in there. I walked by there the whole time, and they were in there constantly cleaning.
Yeah.
They
Your
did a
daughter.
really good job.
Keisha's a good person.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's done a lot of businesses around here forever. So anyway, they're not there anymore though, and so that's available. And Hana Padilla is interested in doing something there, like a grocery and her flowers, and there's various ideas for that. So we'll see if that helps because getting sales tax for the city would be nice. And that kind of evolved into another, um, the fact that we do have a lot of empty buildings in our downtown, which is not helping the city with its vitality. So, what are some things that we could do about that? How can we help people? Um, and then we talked about the campground, the RV campground area that is still being packaged for release. That Dan Burden is still going to do the walkability. Do we have a timeline on that?
For which
Dan
project?
Burden.
So we're working with him now on
Okay.
several projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then the bike park, double dipping. And that's really happening. Boy, they've changed the trail.
Yeah, so we're making some adjustments right now to work with construction and the equipment.
Uh-huh.
Then we're going to have some trail changes too when the creek restoration happens. And then eventually we do want to reroute the trail a bit so that we get a better crossing across the street. So we're not having people cross down at probably one of the worst locations possible. So the intent is working with Dan is to look at where the safest crossing point will be and then you bring people down through what's now the power plant property, which is city property, to the levee trail.
Yeah, which has a gigantic hole in the fence.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
got several
okay.
holes.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah.
So let's see. Oh, and a master plan and parcel subdivision is happening on the northern side of Taylor Way. And then the Powers Creek Restoration Project. And we are going to invite the person who's in charge of this to come to our meeting next month. So they're pulling out a lot of invasive vegetation and gravel and sediment and putting in large woody debris. And the craft fair, which already happened. A little late on that one. Oops. And then I did go yesterday. I spent an hour and a half listening to people talk really fast on a webinar. Here's my notes. So all of these different laws that are going to take effect in January, they will be emailing it to me again. So I'd like a little bit more time to actually digest all of this information because it was so fast and there's so much stuff here. But they talked a lot about homelessness and they talked about sea level rise and they talked about salaries of council people. League of Cities. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the League of Cities. Yeah, the League of Cities. It was a webinar. So all the different laws that are going to go into effect in January. Yeah, and they will be. I didn't receive their email yet, but I will get the entire email. And what I could do is share that with everybody because it's just so much information, all these different different areas. So anyway,
Good.
Yeah, good.
Thank you, council persons. Staff report?
I don't have a staff report at this time. I'll provide a written report in December.
Okay.
We just had a really short turnaround to put the packets together, so.
Future agenda items. We're hoping the Eisners will come at our December 19th meeting. I had a person ask about deposit paybacks after 1 or 2 years of never missing a payment. If there's a possibility that we can implement something as far as
Isn't that already there?
Yeah, we're supposed to bring back a policy to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, someone
Bring it on.
that's in town would like to see that. And then that same person would ask me if the garbage company can start collecting green waste again. But I said we're doing our green waste days every other month or so, but she liked having it in the same
4
spot.
times a year, right?
Yeah.
4 times a year. I think
Yeah.
so. Mhm.
Do we have
Okay.
do we have an update on the leash law thing ordinance?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Leash law. We're waiting on the attorney for that, I think is what's he's
And then I had
crafting language.
Elizabeth, you had talked about the
Blue
the
Lake Community
visioning, right?
Strategic Plan.
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah.
very
From
exciting.
1997. Yes,
You
your
were
name is
there.
in here.
Ooh,
Let's
Do-
see how we did.
Are you wanting to make that an agenda item? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
Yeah.
I would like to read some of this.
Revisit.
Revisit this. This is an amazing document. Amazing.
Well, it does. I mean, if it does sound like we are due for an update. I mean,
Yes.
Right.
Well, let's see how
Just
we did.
Right.
see how we did, and then
Yeah, we're
See,
definitely making a lot of
there's
progress
a
on
lot
a
of
lot of
things
those
left
items.
to do. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. Yeah. But there is some. We're headed in the right direction.
So are we due to have a midterm budget meeting?
we might have a budget update, but we usually have those after the
Usually in March.
yeah,
Yeah. Our
because
budget's pretty, I mean, as long as we're staying on track, we're
because
we
of the
don't
taxes that come in, the house
Yeah.
taxes. By the time they come in December, we don't get them until like sometimes February.
unless we're seeing some major coming up or some
Amendment needed.
change that we're anticipating. It usually tracks pretty on
Okay, we
course.
need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
and second.
Motion by Elizabeth McKay, seconded by Angela Shaw. Any further discussion from council? Public? Back to council.
This is
All
early.
those in
I know
favor
this is
say
early.
aye.
Early.
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.